Beneath the restless waves of the world's oceans, objects appear and vanish with a precision that defies explanation, leaving sonar blips, shadowed silhouettes, and fleeting disturbances in their wake. From the freezing depths of the Arctic to the warm, layered waters of the Mediterranean, these unidentified submerged objects have been detected, documented, and meticulously tracked, yet their true nature remains concealed. Some are enormous, seemingly immovable, while others dart with impossible speed, slipping through instruments and human comprehension alike. Across these mysterious waters, you will accompany naval teams, researchers and explorers as they investigate icy trenches, hidden ridges, and remote seas, recording enigmatic images, unusual sonar readings, and first-hand accounts that hint at a secret world beneath the waves. Each encounter challenges our understanding of motion, matter, and life underwater, leaving a persistent question: what might truly dwell in the deep, far beyond the reach of human observation? The 1974 US Navy report on a massive structure beneath the Atlantic. Night after night in the early 1970s, the Atlantic Ocean absorbed the constant, patient listening of US Navy sonar arrays designed to detect Soviet submarines, yet one particular series of returns refused to behave like anything the system was built to track. Within a declassified US Navy report released years later, analysts described an immense stationary object detected deep beneath the Atlantic, an anomaly whose size and persistence defied ordinary geological explanations. This was not a fleeting contact or a misread echo, but a repeated sonar signature that appeared fixed to the seabed, quietly present in a region otherwise mapped and monitored for military necessity rather than mystery. By 1974, the United States Navy had already spent more than a decade refining long-range underwater surveillance through the Sound Surveillance System, known as SOSUS, a classified network of hydrophones anchored along the Atlantic floor. These sensors were sensitive enough to pick up the distant hum of submarine propellers across hundreds of miles, translating low-frequency vibrations into visual readouts interpreted by trained operators. When the unusual contact appeared, it was first evaluated through the same analytical framework used for known vessels and geological formations. The problem was that it did not match either category, resisting classification despite repeated attempts to reconcile it with existing data models. According to the declassified material, the object's sonar return suggested an enormous mass with defined boundaries, rather than the irregular reflections typical of underwater ridges or sediment formations. Analysts noted its apparent permanence, observing that it remained detectable across multiple sweeps and monitoring periods instead of fading as transient noise often does. Geological charts of the area showed no documented features corresponding to the contact, and previous bathymetric surveys did not explain a structure of such scale appearing without historical precedent. This absence of corroborating geological data transformed what should have been a routine anomaly into an unresolved problem within naval intelligence. The Cold War context sharpened concern around the contact, as any unknown object beneath the Atlantic carried strategic implications. The Navy initially evaluated the possibility of a foreign installation or experimental underwater platform, an idea quickly complicated by the object's size and location. Known Soviet capabilities at the time did not support the construction or concealment of massive fixed structures on the deep ocean floor, especially within areas monitored by Western sonar coverage. The report's language remained cautious, yet its repeated emphasis on the object's scale suggested that analysts themselves recognized the limits of conventional military explanations. Further complicating matters was the way sound interacted with the anomaly. Sonar pulses behaved differently when passing over the object, producing reflections that suggested dense material rather than sediment or rock formations typically encountered at similar depths. While the report avoided speculative conclusions, it acknowledged that acoustic behavior did not align cleanly with known undersea environments. Navy researchers were trained to distrust singular readings, yet this anomaly persisted across different conditions, seasons, and operational contexts, making dismissal increasingly difficult without a credible alternative explanation. The Atlantic seabed, despite decades of exploration, remained far from fully understood in the 1970s. Large swaths had been mapped only in broad strokes, leaving room for unknown features, yet the Navy's concern stemmed from the contrast between civilian oceanographic uncertainty and military familiarity with strategic corridors. This particular region had been repeatedly surveyed due to its importance for submarine traffic and early warning detection. That familiarity made the sudden emergence of a massive, stationary sonar contact feel less like a discovery and more like an intrusion into a carefully observed environment. Declassified annotations reveal that analysts debated whether the object could represent an extreme geological anomaly, such as an unusually shaped seamount or collapsed volcanic structure. However, these possibilities failed to explain the sonar consistency and sharply defined acoustic edges. Natural formations tended to scatter sound unevenly, while this object reflected it in a way that suggested coherence and solidity. The report stopped short of attributing intent or origin, yet its phrasing conveyed unease, as if acknowledging that the anomaly did not comfortably belong within established scientific or military frameworks. What made the report particularly unusual was not its conclusions, but its restraint. Rather than closing the case, it recommended continued observation and classification, indicating that the anomaly warranted long-term monitoring rather than immediate resolution. This approach reflected a broader pattern within naval intelligence, where unexplained phenomena were often archived rather than publicised, especially when they did not pose an immediate threat. In this sense, the massive undersea structure became one of many quiet questions folded into Cold War documentation, preserved but unresolved. Over time, fragments of similar reports surfaced through Freedom of Information Act requests, revealing that the 1974 document was not an isolated curiosity. Other naval records reference stationary underwater anomalies detected during sonar calibration or patrol operations, often described in vague technical language that discouraged deeper inquiry. None explicitly identified a structure of artificial origin, yet none fully dismissed the possibility either. This ambiguity allowed the mystery to persist, suspended between classification and curiosity, neither proven nor forgotten. The Atlantic Ocean has long served as both a barrier and a conduit for human activity, its depths absorbing the remnants of conflict, commerce, and exploration. Beneath shipping lanes and military patrols lies a landscape still largely inaccessible, where pressure and darkness limit direct observation. The 1974 Navy report stands as a reminder that even systems designed for dominance and surveillance encounter boundaries they cannot easily cross. In those boundaries, anomalies can exist undisturbed, recorded only as data points that resist interpretation. As decades passed and technology advanced, newer sonar systems and autonomous vehicles expanded humanity's ability to probe the ocean floor, yet no public follow-up ever definitively addressed the massive structure described in the 1974 report. Whether it was reclassified under a different explanation, quietly resolved, or simply left unexamined remains unknown. What endures is the document itself, a carefully worded acknowledgement that something vast and unmapped was detected beneath the Atlantic, and that its true nature was never conclusively determined. Somewhere beneath the Atlantic's monitored waters, an object once large enough to confound the most advanced naval sensors of its time remains absent from official explanation, waiting in silence where certainty failed. Shag Harbour's submerged object recovery operation. Along Nova Scotia's southern shoreline, where fishing lights usually fade without incident, and the Atlantic is treated as a familiar presence rather than a frontier, an unexpected disturbance unfolded above the water near Shag Harbour on the night of October 4th, 1967. The evening was calm, visibility was clear, and nothing about the conditions suggested an emergency in progress. Yet within minutes, residents would observe a luminous object moving low over the ocean, an event later documented by Canadian authorities and recognised as one of the few UFO cases officially acknowledged by the government. What made this incident unusual from the outset was not only what was seen in the sky, but where it went next. Several residents, watching from separate vantage points along the coast, noticed a low-flying light whose steady movement felt deliberate rather than distressed. Witnesses later described the object as glowing with a yellowish or orange hue, travelling just above the waterline before descending. Some initially assumed it was an aircraft in trouble, possibly attempting an emergency landing on the water, a reasonable conclusion in a region accustomed to maritime and aviation traffic. However, those watching noted the absence of engine noise and the controlled nature of its descent, details that would later complicate any conventional explanation offered for the sighting. What followed was not the violent impact many expected, but a controlled descent into the sea that left the surface strangely intact. Observers reported seeing the object strike the water without an explosion, fireball, or debris field, followed by the appearance of a pale yellow foam spreading across the surface. The water itself showed no signs of burning fuel or wreckage, and nothing resembling aircraft fragments floated into view. This lack of destruction immediately distinguished the event from known aviation accidents, where debris and oil slicks are typically unavoidable, even in controlled ditching scenarios. When the first emergency calls reached authorities, the situation was logged as an aircraft incident, even as early observations failed to support that assumption. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police responded quickly, coordinating with the Canadian Coast Guard to assess the scene. Officers arriving at the shoreline confirmed the presence of the unusual foam, but found no debris consistent with a crash. Despite this discrepancy, the initial response remained procedural, reflecting how unfamiliar events are often filtered through existing frameworks until evidence forces a reassessment. As responsibility shifted from local responders to federal oversight, naval involvement quietly expanded the scope of what had initially seemed routine. The Canadian Coast Guard cutter Cape Scott was dispatched, followed by HMCS Granby, a naval vessel assigned to assist in the search. This escalation signalled that authorities no longer believed the object had simply crashed and sunk nearby, but might still be present beneath the surface. The decision to involve naval assets suggested uncertainty, not alarm, yet it also indicated that the incident had moved beyond the capacity of civilian responders. Below the waterline, attention turned away from wreckage and towards sonar readings that suggested something intact and present. Divers were prepared, and sonar sweeps were conducted in the area where the object had entered the sea. Later accounts from officials indicated that something was detected underwater, though descriptions remained carefully worded and non-specific. The lack of detailed public records about what exactly was found has since fueled speculation, but at the time, the focus remained on tracking rather than explaining whatever lay beneath the harbour's surface. Rather than remaining fixed beneath the harbour, the submerged object appeared to reposition itself, moving away from the coast toward deeper water. Subsequent information released years later suggested that sonar contacts indicated slow, deliberate movement along the seabed, a behaviour inconsistent with sinking wreckage. This apparent motion shifted the nature of the operation, transforming it from a recovery effort into something closer to observation. If accurate, it implied that the object was not disabled by its entry into the water, but capable of continued travel beneath it. Without recovered debris or public explanation, the search effort concluded as abruptly as it had begun. Naval vessels withdrew, and no further attempts were made to locate the object once it appeared to leave the immediate area. Official statements offered no definitive conclusion, and the incident was not accompanied by the usual closure associated with accident investigations. For the residents who witnessed the event, the sudden silence felt as unsettling as the site itself, leaving questions suspended without resolution. In the years that followed, official records confirmed the incident's reality, without clarifying the nature of what had entered the sea. The RCMP logs, Coast Guard reports, and later acknowledgements by Canadian government agencies established Shag Harbour as a genuine documented event rather than folklore or misinterpretation. Notably, it became one of the few UFO cases listed by the Canadian government as unsolved, a classification that recognised the limits of available explanations without venturing into speculation. Unlike many reported aerial encounters, Shag Harbour stood apart because of what authorities attempted to retrieve, not merely what witnesses described. The presence of an organised recovery operation involving multiple agencies and naval resources elevated the case beyond anecdote. It demonstrated that officials treated the incident as a physical event with tangible consequences, even if those consequences were never fully understood. This combination of public witnesses and official response placed Shag Harbour in a rare category of USO cases grounded in documented action rather than rumour. At the centre of the case remains a single unresolved action. Something arrived from the sky, entered the ocean, and departed underwater. No wreckage was recovered, no origin identified, and no explanation offered that accounted for every observed detail. The Atlantic absorbed the event without leaving behind proof sufficient to close the record, preserving the incident in a state of permanent ambiguity that continues to challenge both skepticism and belief. The waters off Shag Harbour offered no wreckage, no remains, and no resistance, only the unsettling impression that whatever entered them was never meant to stay. The Baltic Sea, anomaly, and its unexplained electromagnetic effects. Long regarded as one of the most thoroughly charted bodies of water in Europe, the Baltic Sea offered little reason to expect an unresolved discovery on its floor. Commercial shipping, naval patrols, and scientific expeditions have crossed it for centuries, steadily refining bathymetric maps that leave few blank spaces. Yet in 2011, during a sonar survey conducted in international waters of the Baltic Sea, a Swedish exploration team recorded an anomaly that resisted easy categorization. The contact would later become known as the Baltic Sea anomaly, not because it appeared suddenly or violently, but because it emerged where familiarity was assumed and uncertainty had little room to hide. During a routine sonar survey, a circular formation appeared on the display with an outline sharper than the surrounding seabed. Side-scan sonar imagery revealed a feature roughly circular in shape, distinct from the uneven sediment patterns common to the region. The contrast between the anomaly and its environment was immediate, not due to brightness or size alone, but because its edges appeared unusually defined. Operators accustomed to interpreting natural formations noted that the return lacked the randomness typically associated with glacial debris or sediment accumulation, prompting further passes over the same coordinates to confirm the reading. Under conditions that normally favour reliable acoustic imaging, the equipment began returning inconsistent data near the centre of the contact. The Baltic's relatively shallow depth and calm seabed composition usually allow for clear sonar interpretation, reducing the likelihood of distortion caused by pressure gradients or thermal layers. Yet as the survey vessel crossed directly above the anomaly, readings fluctuated in ways that could not be easily attributed to environmental noise. These irregularities appeared localized rather than widespread, reinforcing the impression that the anomaly itself was influencing the data being collected. As survey vessels moved closer, onboard electronic systems experienced brief but repeatable disruptions. According to later statements from the exploration team, certain instruments reportedly stopped functioning when positioned above the formation, only to resume normal operation once the vessel moved away. Navigation systems, sonar output, and other electronic components were described as temporarily affected, though not permanently damaged. While such claims were treated cautiously by outside observers, the consistency of the reported disruptions across multiple passes added an unexpected dimension to an already puzzling discovery. Attempts to document the area at close range produced clear results only when the distance was restored. Cameras lowered toward the seabed captured limited imagery before experiencing failures that mirrored the issues reported on the surface. When the equipment was raised or repositioned farther from the anomaly, functionality returned, allowing operations to continue without interruption. This recurring pattern suggested that proximity mattered, though no mechanism was identified that could reliably explain why certain systems were affected while others remained operational. Sonar shadows and signal returns suggested a structure whose proportions resisted straightforward classification. Estimates placed the anomaly at roughly 60 meters in diameter, with surface features that appeared uneven but coherent rather than scattered. Some interpretations compared it to a rock formation shaped by glacial movement, while others noted characteristics that did not align cleanly with known geological processes in the region. Importantly, no proposed explanation fully accounted for both the object's apparent form and the reported electronic interference, leaving the anomaly suspended between categories. Once the images entered public circulation, speculation accelerated faster than technical clarification. Media coverage emphasized the object's shape and the reported equipment failures, often framing the discovery as something extraordinary before sufficient analysis could be completed. This attention complicated efforts to keep the discussion grounded in available evidence, as imaginative interpretations quickly filled the gaps left by limited data. The exploration team maintained a cautious public posture, repeatedly stating that the anomaly's nature remained unknown rather than extraordinary by definition. Magnetometers and metal detectors deployed during follow-up surveys recorded unexpected readings above the formation, suggesting the presence of a material with unusual conductive or magnetic properties. These anomalies did not match typical sedimentary rock. nor were they consistent with shipwrecks or known metallic debris in the area. The strength of the electromagnetic deviations fluctuated with proximity, reinforcing earlier reports of electronic interference and raising further questions about the anomaly's composition. Experts noted that such properties could influence sonar and navigation equipment indirectly, complicating efforts to determine whether the object's form or its physical characteristics were responsible for the disruptions observed during multiple surveys. Scientific commentary that followed remained restrained, often stopping short of addressing the reported interference effects directly. Geologists pointed to the Baltic Sea's glacial history, noting that retreating ice sheets can produce unusual formations and compacted sediment structures. Others emphasized that underwater electromagnetic disturbances are difficult to isolate and can be influenced by a range of environmental variables. Still, these explanations tended to focus on physical appearance alone, leaving unresolved why electronic disruptions appeared repeatedly tied to proximity. Unlike many underwater anomalies, this formation showed no indication of movement or decay over time. Subsequent observations did not suggest that it shifted position, altered its outline, or changed its acoustic signature in a meaningful way. Its apparent stability distinguished it from mobile USO cases, reframing the mystery as one of presence rather than pursuit. The object did not evade detection or retreat into deeper waters. It remained fixed, quietly resisting interpretation. Repeated passes across the site yielded new data without narrowing the range of explanations. Improvements in sonar resolution and imaging techniques added detail but not clarity, reinforcing the sense that the anomaly's challenge was conceptual rather than technical. Each new attempt to document it expanded the archive without resolving the central question of what it represented. In this way, accumulation replaced progress, and familiarity failed to produce understanding. What ultimately complicated interpretation was not the object's visibility, but its influence on the instruments observing it. The anomaly exposed limitations in how underwater environments are measured and categorized, suggesting that observation itself may shape what can be known. Rather than hiding from detection, the formation remained accessible yet elusive, forcing investigators to confront the possibility that certain phenomena resist explanation not through secrecy, but through subtle disruption of the tools meant to define them. Whatever rests on the Baltic seabed does not conceal itself from view, yet it quietly unsettles every attempt to measure it. The USS Trepang photographs taken in the Arctic Ocean. Operators reviewing sonar logs noticed a formation unlike anything recorded in previous Arctic patrols, its shape sharp and irregular against the otherwise uniform seabed. The USS Trepang had been conducting routine surveillance, yet this anomaly stood out immediately. Its contours suggested deliberate geometry rather than the chaotic patterns of sediment or glacial rock. The sonar readings were clear enough to warrant further attention, but the environment was unforgiving, with freezing temperatures and intermittent ice coverage complicating every maneuver. What initially seemed like a minor contact soon gained significance as repeated passes confirmed that something substantial and unusual lay beneath the frigid Arctic waters. A faint outline began to emerge on photographic film, revealing contrast that suggested depth and surface variation inconsistent with natural rock. Lights mounted on the submersible captured irregular ridges and shadows that were sharper than typical glacial formations. The photographs, initially grainy and difficult to interpret, were carefully logged and cross-checked against sonar coordinates. Analysts noted that the visual evidence correlated with the electronic readings, reinforcing the anomaly's authenticity. Despite the clarity of the shape, its origin remained obscure. It did not resemble any documented wreck, pipeline, or other artificial feature, and yet it retained a symmetry that hinted at design or purpose. Calibration of the submersible cameras was repeatedly interrupted by temperature-induced lens condensation, forcing the crew to adapt their approach to documentation. The Arctic water, near freezing, caused condensation to form almost immediately upon deployment, reducing visibility and forcing multiple retrievals to clean lenses. Each adjustment slowed the survey but also revealed additional detail, as successive images captured slightly different angles and shadows. Crew members worked meticulously, balancing operational protocols with the growing sense of encountering something outside ordinary expectations. The process was painstaking but necessary, Each image became part of a slowly assembling puzzle that refused to simplify into a known form. Unexpected currents shifted the vessel subtly, introducing minor distortions into sonar data that complicated efforts to pinpoint the object's dimensions. While the Arctic Ocean is generally considered calm, localized undercurrents caused the submarine to drift and the sonar to produce irregular echoes. Operators quickly learned to distinguish between environmental noise and actual anomalies, yet each sweep demanded careful interpretation. The object's position appeared stable, but the readings hinted at features that did not behave as natural formations typically do, suggesting unusual density or composition. This constant recalibration emphasized the technical difficulty of documenting the anomaly without creating further confusion in the data. Detailed analysis of the images revealed angular edges and smooth surfaces, hinting at a formation that defied conventional geological explanations. Some photographs showed straight lines intersecting at unusual angles, while others displayed dome-like surfaces that contrasted with the surrounding terrain. Analysts noted that while glacial and tectonic activity can produce oddly shaped rock, the combination of smooth surfaces, apparent symmetry and sharp edges was rare. The formation's scale, tens of meters across, further distinguished it from known features in the region. Observers could not identify a terrestrial or marine analogue, leaving them with only the photographs, sonar readings, and the uneasy impression of encountering something genuinely anomalous. Reflected sonar pulses returned at unusual intervals, creating echoes that could not be reconciled with known wreckage or sediment patterns. Certain sonar pings produced a double return, as if the object possessed internal cavities or layers of varying density. Operators noted that these readings did not change with multiple passes, suggesting permanence rather than a transient phenomenon. Such behavior reinforced the impression that the anomaly was not simply a rock or sunken debris. While speculation was carefully avoided in operational logs, the consistency of the irregular echoes hinted at something deliberate and substantial beneath the surface. Every observation was logged meticulously, with coordinates, depth readings, and photographic timestamps cross-checked to preserve the integrity of the record. Crew members adhered to naval protocols, ensuring that every anomaly was documented within the official report. Despite the unusual nature of the object, the data was treated methodically. Every sonar return, every camera exposure, every environmental measurement became part of a comprehensive record. This disciplined approach ensured that the encounter would withstand scrutiny, even as analysts grappled with its implications. The growing collection of evidence made it clear that the anomaly was real, not an artifact of equipment error or human misperception. Geological surveys and historical charts offered no precedent for the object, leaving analysts puzzled over its composition and form. The region had been mapped extensively for decades, with previous expeditions cataloguing glacial features, sediment deposits, and known wrecks. Nothing in these records resembled the formation photographed by the Trepang. Even expert geomorphologists could not reconcile the anomaly with glacial erosion patterns, sediment compaction, or tectonic activity. This absence of precedent intensified the mystery, as the anomaly seemed both plausible in its physicality and impossible in terms of known Arctic geology. An analytical review of the photographs was delayed by operational priorities, leaving the ambiguous data unresolved until after the vessel returned to port. During the mission, crew attention was primarily focused on navigation and environmental safety, meaning detailed interpretation was deferred. Once the images and sonar logs were transferred to analysts on land, review revealed subtle inconsistencies and peculiarities previously unnoticed. Certain shadows suggested angles that could not be explained by surrounding topography, and some reflective surfaces indicated materials denser than typical rock. Despite these findings, no definitive identification could be made, leaving the anomaly officially recorded but unexplained. Repeated sonar sweeps and photographic passes yielded consistent evidence of an object that remained stable yet incomprehensible in scale and form. Across multiple passes, the anomaly's outline persisted, echo patterns remained irregular, and photographic angles confirmed its three-dimensional presence. The cumulative evidence left little room for doubt regarding its physical existence, but provided no answers about its origin or purpose. Analysts were confronted with a paradox. The object was measurable and observable, yet its characteristics resisted integration into any existing framework of Arctic oceanography or naval knowledge. Photographs and sonar logs were archived under strict classification, leaving the anomaly preserved as an unexplained observation within the military record. Despite the clarity of the evidence, the encounter remained inaccessible to the public and to most scientists. Only those with clearance could review the images, but even among them, interpretations varied. The combination of Arctic remoteness, technical documentation, and anomalous physical characteristics created a record both compelling and enigmatic. The USS Trepang's encounter thus became a preserved mystery, a fragment of observation that hinted at an unknown presence far beneath the ice. Beneath the Arctic waters, the object persisted in silent defiance, visible yet impossible to fully interpret. The 1963 Puerto Rico Trench USO tracked at extreme speed. Sensors on the patrol vessel recorded an object moving at a velocity that immediately defied expectations for known marine activity. The USS surveillance team was conducting a routine observation mission along the Puerto Rico Trench when the anomaly appeared on sonar. Initial readings were so sudden that operators double-checked the instruments, suspecting a technical error. Yet repeated passes confirmed the object's presence and extraordinary speed. The crew quickly realized they were tracking something outside conventional understanding, its path slicing through deep ocean waters with precision that suggested intentionality rather than drift. Every pulse of the sonar seemed to underscore the impossibility of what they were witnessing. Crew members adjusted sonar sensitivity as the readings indicated a trajectory covering vast distances in mere seconds. Standard filters and sweep intervals were insufficient to keep the object consistently in view. Operators juggled recalibrations while monitoring depth variations that spanned thousands of meters. The anomaly's speed left little time to measure its size or confirm its composition. Each adjustment of the sonar array offered fleeting clarity, capturing segments of the object's path before it darted beyond the beam. The crew's astonishment grew with every measurement. Nothing catalogued in naval or oceanographic records could match such rapid underwater movement. Tracking became difficult as the trench's depth caused signal delays and unpredictable echo patterns that complicated interpretation. At extreme depths, water density and temperature gradients distorted sonar returns, making the object's position appear to shift erratically. Operators learned to distinguish between environmental interference and actual movement, yet even with careful observation, the readings defied expectation. The anomaly's apparent acceleration and sudden course changes seemed to mock conventional understanding of underwater physics. Every attempt to maintain continuous monitoring revealed a new complication. The deeper they probed, the less predictable the object became. Pressure gauges and environmental sensors registered conditions extreme enough to challenge both equipment and the assumptions of oceanographers. The Puerto Rico Trench reaches depths exceeding 8 kilometers, where immense hydrostatic pressure and near-freezing temperatures strain both human endurance and mechanical reliability. Instruments behaved differently than at shallower depths, adding another layer of uncertainty to every reading. Despite this, the object's speed remained consistent, as though entirely unaffected by the extreme environment. Crew logs noted that even state-of-the-art 1960s sonar systems struggled to capture its full trajectory, reinforcing the impression that they were observing something extraordinary. Occasional distortions in sonar returns suggested either a unique physical composition or unusual hydrodynamic properties influencing detection. Some echoes returned stronger or weaker than expected, implying an object denser than the surrounding water, but not matching known wreckage or geological features. Other readings produced mirrored signals, as if the object possessed internal cavities or reflective surfaces that interacted unpredictably with sound waves. Analysts would later highlight these irregularities as evidence that the USO could manipulate or exist outside ordinary physical constraints. Yet, at the moment, the crew could only record what the instruments revealed, uncertain of its exact nature. The officers on watch meticulously logged every observation, conscious that human error could not account for the anomalies appearing on instruments. Coordinates, speed estimations, and timestamps were recorded with military precision. No detail was dismissed, no irregularity overlooked. Officers cross-referenced sonar pulses with other sensor data to validate readings. Even mundane aspects, such as changes in water temperature or acoustic interference from marine life, were catalogued to ensure nothing was misinterpreted. This disciplined documentation created a permanent record, one that would later allow analysts to confirm the object's extreme velocity and consistent behaviour, despite lacking a conventional explanation. Course corrections and tactical manoeuvres were employed in an attempt to maintain a continuous sonar lock on the object's path. The vessel altered speed and heading multiple times, yet the USO's movements remained unpredictable. Some manoeuvres briefly aligned with the object, capturing a fleeting segment of its journey. Others were rendered ineffective by sudden accelerations. Operators noted that the USO seemed capable of rapid bursts beyond any known submarine or marine animal. These moments of alignment and loss heightened tension aboard the vessel, as the crew realized they were attempting to observe something entirely unlike conventional targets. Unpredictable accelerations and abrupt directional changes hinted at a behavior unlike any conventional underwater vessel or known marine life. At times, the object appeared to slow only to surge forward again, covering hundreds of meters in seconds. It maneuvered around deep-sea features with astonishing agility, never colliding, never producing turbulence that would betray its presence to other instruments. Observers recorded these erratic patterns without speculation, understanding that the data itself conveyed the anomaly's extraordinary capabilities. In the midst of this, the Puerto Rico Trench remained silent and vast, its darkness swallowing most context, leaving the anomaly isolated yet unmistakably real. After the encounter, analysts compared recorded speeds with contemporary naval and marine capabilities, revealing discrepancies that remain unexplained. Calculations demonstrated that no human-made submersible of the era could achieve the rapid acceleration or course changes documented. Similarly, known deep-sea creatures, even the fastest, could not match the object's sustained velocity. The USO's behaviour was therefore catalogued as an operational anomaly, verified but unclassified in public literature. These post-mission analyses only reinforced the initial astonishment. The 1963 encounter was not a misreading, not a malfunction, but a genuine observation defying known limits. Historical records confirm that very few deep-sea observations captured objects moving so rapidly in the Puerto Rico Trench during this period. Most documented encounters involved slower-moving anomalies or stationary unidentified objects, often measured over hours or days. In contrast, the 1963 USO traversed vast portions of the trench in minutes, creating a singular event in naval records. Comparisons with later sightings suggest that high-speed USOs remain exceedingly rare, and that the Puerto Rico Trench's extreme environment may be uniquely suited to their movement. This rarity magnifies the encounter's significance, positioning it as a key case study in the annals of USO observation. Despite extensive documentation and verification, the anomaly defied classification, preserved as an unresolved observation within naval archives. Reports were filed, data analysed, and the encounter logged with precision, yet no interpretation could reconcile the object's extraordinary speed with known physics or marine biology. Within the Navy, the event is recognised as genuine, but its meaning remains obscure. For decades, researchers and naval historians have referenced the 1963 Puerto Rico Trench USO as a benchmark of anomalous underwater behaviour, a case where measurement alone could confirm existence without providing answers. No instrument could keep pace, and what raced through the trench vanished as abruptly as it appeared, leaving only echoes in its wake. Soviet Navy encounters in Lake Baikal's deepest zones. Descending into Lake Baikal's deepest trenches, the Soviet submersible creaked under mounting pressure, the crew alert to every subtle fluctuation in the instruments. The lake, renowned for its unparalleled depth and clarity, also concealed a labyrinth of thermoclines and dense sediment layers that distorted sonar readings. The mission had been routine: survey the trench floor and map geological formations for scientific and naval purposes. Yet as the submersible reached near record depths, the crew noticed anomalies in the echo returns, subtle yet persistent, hinting at an object moving through this water with a deliberate, almost intelligent trajectory. Layers of cold, fresh water twisted and shifted silently around the hull, bending sonar pulses and producing readings that challenged standard interpretation. The unusual thermal gradients caused certain echoes to vanish unexpectedly or return with amplified intensity, as if the water itself was masking and amplifying signals simultaneously. crew members struggled to discern whether the distortions were environmental artifacts or the presence of an unknown object. The lake's extreme conditions, combined with the submersible's limited 1960 S-era instrumentation, magnified every uncertainty, creating an atmosphere in which even the most experienced operators questioned what was truly being detected. Onboard officers leaned over consoles, recalibrating sensors and cross-checking every echo to distinguish between natural turbulence and potential anomalies. Each new sweep produced fragments of patterns that seemed intentional, yet no conventional underwater vessel or known animal could account for the speed and directionality implied. Logs were maintained with extreme care, every pulse time-stamped and noted with latitude, longitude, and depth. Crew communication was precise and restrained, reflecting the seriousness of a mission where misinterpretation could mean losing an extraordinary discovery to error. The lake's extreme depth created invisible barriers where sound and light behaved unpredictably, forcing the team to question every observation. Pressures exceeding 150 atmospheres and temperatures near freezing caused sonar to behave differently than expected, echoing readings in ways that defied conventional acoustics. Shadows on photographic plates often appeared warped or disconnected, further complicating visual verification. Despite these limitations, the anomaly maintained consistent movement, appearing to navigate through the trench with a precision that suggested a control system, natural or artificial, far beyond known capabilities. A sudden irregularity on the screens hinted at motion, though its origin remained unclear amid the sediment-laden waters. The crew observed a streak of reflected sound that darted across multiple sonar sweeps in mere seconds, accelerating and decelerating unpredictably. At times, it disappeared entirely, only to reappear at a different depth or lateral position, as if it had circumvented the submersible's sensors entirely. The operators documented each occurrence meticulously, noting that these behaviours contrasted sharply with the slow, steady currents and geological shifts expected in the trench. Instruments registered minute disturbances in pressure and acoustic reflection, each anomaly meticulously logged for further study. Small but consistent deviations suggested the object displaced water or emitted energy in ways the crew could not immediately detect. Temperature sensors occasionally recorded subtle fluctuations, and sonar pulses returned faint, irregular echoes that lacked a natural explanation. The team recognized that these readings, when analyzed collectively, formed a pattern of behavior that indicated a distinct, tangible presence moving through the depths, yet remained impossible to classify with certainty. The submersible maneuvered slowly along the trench floor, shadows stretching across sonar maps in patterns that defied familiar underwater formations. As it followed the suspected path, the team noted sudden bursts of vertical movement, objects moving faster than expected for any known freshwater life or humanity-made craft. The submersible's propulsion adjustments often revealed only fragments of the anomaly before it vanished from view, leaving sonar traces in its wake that could not be entirely explained. Each fleeting appearance heightened tension among the crew, who understood that the deep lake environment amplified the stakes of any error or misreading. Captured images revealed fragmented shapes and unexpected angles, their geometry inconsistent with known geological features. Photographs displayed surfaces that seemed unusually smooth, intersected by lines that suggested design rather than natural formation. Shadows and light played tricks on the cameras, yet repeated captures confirmed unusual contours. Every attempt to interpret these shapes raised more questions than answers. Were they rock, machinery, or something altogether unknown? The photographic record became a central point of debate, revealing only partial evidence of a presence whose full form remained tantalizingly obscured. Naval scientists compared every measurement against existing freshwater biology and geology, yet no explanation satisfied all the recorded behaviours. Depth, speed, evasive manoeuvring, and repeated appearances in different locations defied classification. No aquatic species documented in Baikal or any comparable environment could account for the data, nor did any known geological process produce such precise dynamic echoes. Analysts noted in reports that, while verification procedures confirmed the anomaly's reality, its origin and nature remained elusive, leaving a gap in understanding that persisted despite rigorous review. Classified reports indicate that encounters of this magnitude in Baikal's depths were rare, with most remaining hidden within Soviet archives. Few missions reached such depth with sufficient instrumentation to even detect unusual movement, and those that did rarely recorded patterns as complex or sustained as this instance. For decades, the encounter remained known to only a select group of naval personnel and scientists, its details obscured by Cold War secrecy. Only occasional references in declassified summaries hinted at the anomaly, leaving its full story largely confined to classified archives. Even after repeated observation and careful documentation, the Deep Lake entity continued to evade identification, leaving questions unanswered. Each new expedition or survey produced fragments of evidence but no conclusive understanding, as if the object existed on the edge of detection. While its presence could be measured indirectly through sonar echoes, pressure changes, and distorted photographic traces, its full dimensions, composition, and purpose remained beyond reach. The mystery endured, challenging every expectation of what might inhabit the freshwater abyss of the world's deepest lake. Silent and unseen, it vanished into the trench's shadows, leaving only faint echoes to suggest it had ever existed. The Gulf of California's recurrent sonar targets. The Gulf of California's deep channels and steep undersea ridges created an unpredictable acoustic environment, drawing repeated attention from naval survey teams. The region, where the Pacific Plate meets the North American Plate, was known for undersea canyons, abrupt drop-offs, and shifting sediments that constantly challenged navigation and observation. Survey vessels equipped with sonar and hydrophones operated cautiously, aware that the Gulf's geography could create phantom readings or distort signals. Yet, over successive missions, certain anomalies appeared too consistently to dismiss, leaving researchers with the uneasy sense that something extraordinary lingered just beyond the reach of their instruments. Recurring echoes emerged on multiple instruments, appearing at intervals yet defying identification with any known marine species or vessel. These signals were irregular in strength and shape, sometimes forming distinct arcs, sometimes dissolving into static before reappearing elsewhere. Depth estimates varied widely, suggesting rapid vertical movement that conventional underwater craft could not achieve. Even experienced operators struggled to reconcile the readings with familiar patterns of sonar reflection, while naval engineers logged each irregularity with meticulous care, aware that repeated confirmation would be essential for any serious study. Over weeks of observation, a strange consistency in movement suggested deliberate motion rather than random drift. The echoes followed certain routes, looping through undersea ridges and sudden trenches, occasionally reversing direction as if mapping an unseen path. Analysts compared these readings to tidal and current patterns, eliminating natural explanations for the apparent decision-making embedded in the object's trajectory. Each repeated appearance heightened intrigue and anxiety, as the team realized they were witnessing behavior that defied conventional understanding of marine movement. Shifting currents through narrow canyons, combined with temperature and salinity layers, bent sound waves, and complicated, precise tracking. The Gulf's water column was layered with thermoclines that refracted sonar pulses unpredictably, sometimes masking the anomaly entirely, sometimes amplifying its presence. Operators had to consider whether the readings represented physical movement, acoustic illusions, or a combination of both. Even with careful triangulation from multiple vessels, the object's precise location remained elusive, slipping between instruments like a shadow in the water. Unusual acoustic reflections occasionally coincided with minor seismic tremors in the Gulf, a region known for its tectonic activity along the East Pacific Rise. Naval engineers speculated that the anomaly's movements might be influenced, or at least obscured, by shifting sediments, underwater vents, or sudden changes in the water column caused by tectonic disturbances. Sensors detected microbubbles rising from the seabed in the vicinity of the sonar targets, creating erratic echoes that complicated interpretation. Every new sweep revealed both patterns and irregularities, as if the anomaly was moving in harmony with the subtle, restless rhythms of the Gulf itself. Bursts of speed and sudden pauses made the anomalies vanish and reappear as if the Gulf itself concealed their passage. The targets occasionally accelerated far beyond the capacity of conventional submarines, then lingered motionless in areas where currents would normally carry debris or small fish. These irregularities suggested intentional maneuvering, a deliberate avoidance of observation that intensified the sense of intelligence or awareness behind the phenomenon. Crew discussions were hushed, the tension mounting as each sonar sweep revealed patterns that could not be explained by familiar physics. Engineers repeatedly adjusted hydrophones and sonar arrays, striving to validate the signals across multiple devices and measurement passes. Each recalibration was a painstaking exercise, with small changes in sensitivity or frequency, revealing additional anomalies previously masked by interference. Logs became increasingly detailed, noting precise timings, depths, angles, and relative movement speeds. Despite the repetitive nature of the data collection, every sweep carried uncertainty, as environmental factors continually altered how the signals manifested across sensors. Anticipation filled the control room as every screen and gauge was scrutinized for signs of reappearance. Officers and scientists worked side by side, their attention fixed on the monitors while the gentle hum of engines and sonar pulses filled the air. Conversations were limited to technical observations, though the unspoken tension suggested that all were aware of witnessing something both unusual and potentially unprecedented. Each subtle blip or shift was met with both excitement and caution, as the anomaly refused to reveal its form or origin fully. Tethered probes and remote cameras recorded only fragmented shapes and fleeting shadows that resisted clear interpretation. Even when lights were activated in deeper zones, images captured were partial at best, showing smooth contours and angles that seemed engineered rather than geological. Shadows warped in the current, sometimes hinting at vertical surfaces, sometimes appearing as low, elongated forms. Every attempt to visualize the anomaly ended with ambiguity, reinforcing the Gulf's reputation as a domain where clarity was fleeting and certainty was impossible. Analysis eliminated known species, geological features, and submarine traffic, leaving the anomalies unexplained. Marine biologists confirmed that no fish, squid, or other aquatic life in the region could produce such rapid or intentional movements at depth. Geological studies showed nothing resembling the detected shapes in sediment or rock formations. Naval records verified that no authorized vessels operated in these precise locations at the times of repeated detection. The persistence and pattern of the signals suggested a reality that was undeniable yet frustratingly opaque. Earlier reports indicate that similar readings had been noted over decades, often dismissed as instrument error or misidentification. Historical sonar logs from prior survey missions occasionally documented fleeting, unusual echoes in similar areas of the Gulf, yet none received sustained investigation. Only now, with repeated methodical tracking and modern instrumentation, did the phenomenon appear systematic enough to warrant serious scrutiny. These archival traces hinted that the Gulf of California may have been concealing this entity for decades, silently resisting observation. Meticulous tracking and repeated observation still failed to reveal the object fully, reinforcing the Gulf's reputation for enigmatic phenomena. The anomaly appeared and disappeared on sonar, leaving only partial evidence of its presence. Researchers speculated on its size, shape, and purpose, yet each theory was contradicted by subsequent sweeps. Even after weeks of continuous study, the Gulf offered no answers, only patterns that teased understanding while keeping the true nature of the anomaly hidden. The sense of an intelligent, elusive presence lingered, haunting every observation and analysis. Each sonar sweep confirmed its presence, yet as always the Gulf swallowed it whole before revealing even a shadow of its true form. The Black Sea incident logged by NATO observers. The Black Sea's deep anoxic layers and stratified currents created an environment where even the most advanced instrumentation struggled to provide certainty, demanding patience and vigilance from NATO crews navigating its hidden depths. Ships moved cautiously through the muted grey waters, aware that strong thermoclines and dense bottom layers could bend sound waves and distort readings. Visibility was limited, and the Gulf's peculiar geology, a series of deep basins, submerged ridges, and near-vertical drop-offs, made every navigation decision critical. Officers knew that any misstep could render the sonar's delicate interpretations meaningless, yet a persistent sense of unease lingered as instruments hummed quietly in the background. Layers of cold, dense water and sudden thermoclines warped acoustic signals, forcing teams to interpret readings cautiously and consider every possible source of interference. Signals appeared and vanished with irregular timing, bouncing unpredictably off submerged ridges and sediment layers. The sonar pulses reflected at odd angles created a labyrinth of echoes that were nearly impossible to differentiate from natural acoustic artifacts. Operators had to separate the meaningful anomalies from the chaotic background noise, constantly recalibrating equipment to account for fluctuating water density, pressure changes, and subtle temperature shifts. Military observers maintained constant logs, noting irregular sonar reflections alongside natural phenomena such as sediment plumes, undersea vents, and sudden shifts in salinity. Every operator knew that precision in documentation could make the difference between dismissing a fleeting blip as environmental interference and capturing evidence of an entirely unexplained phenomenon. Minute details, timing, angle of reflection, the depth at which the echo appeared, were meticulously recorded. Reports became layered chronicles where each entry referenced the previous one, creating a narrative of persistence and unpredictability that only deepened the sense of something unknown lurking beneath the waves. Command centres across multiple NATO nations exchanged reports in real time, balancing the need for accurate data with strict operational security and cautious interpretation. Messages were concise, technical, and often cryptic, emphasizing only the verifiable elements of the observations. Analysts in distant offices cross-checked data against navigational charts, submarine patrol records, and environmental studies, seeking any correlation that might provide clarity. Each communication underscored the mystery. Patterns existed, yet their origin, composition, and purpose remained elusive, leaving all parties aware that conventional explanations were insufficient. Unexpected shifts in movement suggested that whatever created the signals was capable of rapid acceleration and abrupt depth changes, defying conventional explanation. Objects appeared to rise from the depths, linger briefly in midwater, then disappear at speeds incompatible with known submarines. The movements did not conform to ocean currents or predictable hydrodynamics, suggesting either intelligence or a natural phenomenon unknown to science. Each instance was recorded in painstaking detail, yet no conclusion could be drawn. The Gulf itself seemed to guard its secrets, as if responding to each probe with subtle, calculated resistance. Specialized hydrophones were recalibrated frequently, and sonar sweeps were repeated in overlapping patterns to differentiate between anomalies and environmental noise. Technicians adjusted frequencies, altered beam widths, and tested alternate scanning paths, hoping to achieve a stable and repeatable signature. The environment remained uncooperative. Low oxygen layers absorbed sound unpredictably, while variations in salinity caused minor refractions. Every adjustment revealed new irregularities, new distortions that could be interpreted as evidence of something extraordinary, or as mere artifacts of the Black Sea's complex hydrography. The uncertainty itself became part of the observation. Visual sensors and periscopic equipment provided only fleeting glimpses, revealing distorted shapes and blurred forms that resisted classification. Glimpses of smooth surfaces or shadowy angles emerged in fleeting flashes, often disappearing before analysis could be attempted. Cameras captured indistinct reflections, water turbulence, and transient shadows, none of which offered definitive identification. The observers were left to interpret partial impressions, assembling fragments of a puzzle with most pieces obscured or missing, further enhancing the impression of a deliberately concealed entity lurking below. Careful evaluation eliminated known marine species, geological formations, and civilian or military vessel traffic, leaving a phenomenon that remained categorically unidentified. Scientists confirmed that local fish and squid populations could not generate the observed speed, depth changes, or acoustic signatures. Geological studies showed no ridges or canyons matching the shape or behavior of the anomalies. Naval logs verified that no authorized vessels had passed through the area at the reported times. Each elimination left a smaller range of possibilities, but none provided a satisfactory explanation, reinforcing the sense that something entirely unfamiliar inhabited the depths. Tension pervaded the observation decks as every officer recognized the limits of technology and the gulf between data and understanding. Conversations were minimal, technical, and deliberate, yet the undercurrent of unease was palpable. Every new ping of sonar, every faint flicker on a monitor, was met with scrutiny, as if the crews expected the anomaly to respond to their attention. Sleep was often interrupted by the knowledge that what they could measure, chart, or photograph was only a fraction of the reality below, and that the true form of the object might remain forever beyond reach. Historical NATO logs noted similar unexplained phenomena in the Black Sea, often recorded without further study, adding layers of ambiguity to current observations. Reports from previous decades described acoustic blips, shadowy forms, and fleeting visual anomalies, but were frequently dismissed as sensor errors or natural occurrences. Cross-referencing these historical encounters with contemporary data revealed subtle consistencies in location, behaviour, and movement, suggesting a long-term presence of an unknown entity. The notion that this anomaly could persist over decades without explanation heightened both the scientific curiosity and the sense of unease among the crews. Repeated passes and careful documentation failed to fully reveal the anomaly, offering only patterns that teased comprehension without ever yielding clarity. The sonar readings traced loops, arcs, and abrupt reversals, but no single image or signal ever provided a complete understanding of its nature. Investigators documented size estimates, depths, and approximate speed, yet every conclusion was provisional, subject to correction or contradiction by the next sweep. In the cold, layered waters of the Black Sea, the unknown persisted as a puzzle that teased reason while denying certainty, leaving observers with an unsettling impression of something deliberately concealed, yet undeniably present. The Black Sea swallowed it once more, while every instrument recorded its presence with haunting precision, hinting at a reality that refused to be understood. The 1986 Japan Trench sonar contact with a stationary object. The Japan Trench plunged into darkness, its near vertical walls swallowing sound and light, while research vessels hovered tens of kilometers above, aware that the abyss below concealed enigmas beyond ordinary comprehension. Instruments strained against the oppressive depths, capturing only fragmentary readings as the trench's sheer scale distorted sound and movement. Crew members aboard the ships maintained tense vigilance, understanding that any miscalculation could render the data meaningless. Below, the cold, unyielding waters seemed to resist intrusion, while every sonar ping and submersible light probe illuminated fragments of a realm largely untouched by human observation. The vastness of the trench itself created a natural barrier, leaving only fleeting glimpses into its hidden depths. Sonar arrays recorded an unyielding signal that remained fixed in place, a contrast to the surrounding undulating currents and drifting sediments that constantly shifted around it. The initial blip appeared unexpectedly on the monitors, a consistent dense reflection that refused to drift with the ocean's flow. Technicians studied the patterns, noting the object's stability even as surrounding features shifted or dissolved into ambient noise. It became clear that this was not a passing anomaly, nor a transient formation, but a persistent presence defying conventional expectations. Every attempt to interpret its dimensions, shape, or orientation produced inconclusive results, yet the signal's immovability demanded attention and scrutiny. At depths exceeding 8,000 meters, the crushing pressure transformed equipment behavior, forcing engineers to continually monitor for distortions or false readings caused by extreme environmental conditions. Sensors could fail without warning, and even reinforced submersible hulls were pushed to their limits. Temperature gradients and salinity variations further complicated acoustic readings, creating spurious echoes and blurred impressions of the trench walls. Operators worked in near silence, each alert or ping eliciting careful verification, knowing that a misinterpretation could misrepresent either nature or something entirely unknown. The environment itself seemed to challenge the observers, testing their tools and patience at every moment. Deep-sea submersibles were launched cautiously, their lights piercing only fragments of the inky blackness, revealing glimpses of shadowed contours that suggested an immense immobile presence. Hulls groaned under the immense pressure, while robotic arms and cameras recorded partial shapes and angles that hinted at vast dimensions. Even the closest approach could not clarify the object's structure. Light barely reached it before being absorbed or scattered. The vessel's crews noted every reflection, shadow, and texture, yet each observation deepened the mystery rather than resolving it. It seemed the object occupied a space just beyond full comprehension, teasing the observers with its permanence. Acoustic reflections returned sharper and denser than any natural rock formation or documented marine creature, hinting at a composition far heavier than surrounding sediment or basalt. The sonar signature suggested a mass of unusual density, one that absorbed and reflected sound in ways that defied expectation. Experts debated the possibility of mineral deposits or submarine formations, but found no precedent for the object's acoustic characteristics. The reflections remained consistent across repeated scans, further indicating that the anomaly was neither ephemeral nor easily explained. Each reading added to a growing catalogue of unresolved features that resisted traditional classification. Currents twisted unpredictably around the trench walls, and hydrothermal vents emitted plumes that interfered with sonar, complicating each attempt to precisely map the object. These natural disturbances could mimic motion or obscure features, requiring careful triangulation and timing of each survey. Sensors sometimes picked up swirling sediment clouds that created ghostly images on screens, producing an eerie impression of movement where there was none. The research teams learned to differentiate between these environmental effects and the steadfast signature of the stationary object, yet the combination of natural interference and trench complexity left the anomaly perpetually enigmatic. Multiple sonar sweeps verified its unchanging position, defying every attempt to provoke motion or detect behaviour, emphasising an unnerving permanence. Each sweep returned the same result. The object remained fixed in the abyssal plane, unresponsive to currents or artificial probes. Technicians noted that its persistence suggested an extraordinary level of stability, whether structural, biological or otherwise. The more closely it was monitored, the less it revealed itself, as if the trench had chosen to guard this secret with impenetrable discretion. Even repeated analysis could not reconcile the object's presence with any known geological or man-made phenomena. High-resolution cameras and remote imaging systems captured only fleeting fragments of its structure, irregular angles, metallic glints, and forms that resisted clear identification. Every illuminated segment appeared incomplete, with shadows obscuring edges and contours. The submersible's lights barely reached the object, and the resulting images were grainy, leaving scientists to speculate cautiously. These visual clues reinforced the sonar evidence, suggesting that the object possessed both mass and shape, but withheld the totality of its form. Observers were left with the sensation of glimpsing a phantom solid, existing yet withholding its true nature. Measurements suggested a scale stretching hundreds of meters across, but none of the observed features aligned with known geological formations or artificial constructs. The object's dimensions were immense, occupying a significant portion of the trench floor, yet its geometry appeared organized rather than random. Analysts compared it to documented seabed structures, submerged ridges, and previously encountered anomalies, but nothing matched its characteristics. Its sheer size, combined with the lack of identifiable features, created a profound sense of otherness, leaving even experienced deep-sea explorers unsettled by what they could only categorize as unexplained. Earlier trench surveys and seismic monitoring showed no comparable anomaly, marking the 1986 contact as singular in both location and characteristics. Despite decades of geological mapping and oceanographic research, the Japan Trench had revealed nothing remotely like the stationary object before. This uniqueness reinforced both the urgency and the mystery surrounding it, prompting repeated passes with every available sensor and submersible system. The anomaly existed outside precedent, and every attempt to frame it within known scientific paradigms failed, leaving a gap between observation and understanding that could not be bridged. Efforts to reconcile visual, acoustic, and environmental data yielded patterns of certainty and uncertainty, leaving the object partially understood yet fundamentally elusive. Each type of measurement revealed only fragments of its nature, highlighting the limits of human observation in the deepest parts of the ocean. Interdisciplinary collaboration attempted to synthesize sonar data, photographic evidence, and environmental models, yet the object resisted categorization. The more data accumulated, the more it suggested that some truths about the abyss might remain hidden indefinitely, as if the ocean itself preserved its mysteries deliberately. It rested in the abyss, stationary and inscrutable, as though the ocean had claimed it as its own secret, never to reveal the truth. The Mediterranean USO observed during Operation Mainbrace. Operation Mainbrace unfolded across the northern Mediterranean, where NATO fleets manoeuvred under crisp autumn skies, unaware that the waters beneath held a fleeting, enigmatic presence that would confound even the most seasoned observers. Warships traced precise navigational paths, aircraft conducted routine patrols, and naval crews followed schedules refined over years of training. Yet amid this disciplined activity, subtle anomalies began to register. Ripples inconsistent with wind or tide, fleeting shadows on radar, and sudden unexplained sonar blips. These irregularities, first dismissed as technical errors or natural phenomena, persisted long enough to draw the curiosity and caution of officers aboard multiple vessels, hinting at a presence both elusive and extraordinary. A sudden glimmer on the horizon drew attention from the deck of a destroyer, a fleeting shape breaking the water's surface before vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Sailors reported a smooth metallic sheen reflecting the low sun, unlike any conventional submarine or surface craft. Binoculars tracked it for mere seconds. In that brief instant, the object seemed to move with deliberate intent, submerging without generating turbulence or bow waves typical of known vessels. The eerie silence accompanying the sighting heightened tension, leaving observers to wonder whether what they had glimpsed was an entirely unknown marine entity or a technological anomaly beyond contemporary understanding. Radar operators noted an unusual echo that seemed to shift intermittently, appearing and disappearing in concert with the brief surface glimpses, challenging conventional tracking protocols. The signals were inconsistent with the predictable returns of naval ships, yet too substantial to be dismissed as spurious interference. Technicians meticulously cross-referenced multiple radar sources and noted that the anomaly did not conform to expected movement patterns, sometimes halting abruptly or appearing to change depth instantaneously. Each attempt to measure size or velocity produced inconclusive results, adding layers of ambiguity that unsettled even experienced signal analysts accustomed to interpreting complex maritime data. The object's movement was unpredictable, diving and surfacing without pattern, twisting laterally in ways that no known submarine or vessel could replicate. Crews attempted to anticipate its trajectory, marking positions and speeds, but the anomaly defied calculations. In moments, it would vanish beneath the surface only to resurface elsewhere, leaving no trail of bubbles or wake in the intervening water. These erratic motions challenged the very principles of naval navigation and hydrodynamics, prompting speculation that the USO operated through unknown means, whether natural or artificial, beyond the comprehension of conventional maritime science. Officers recorded observations in hushed logs, carefully noting every anomaly while attempting to reconcile their visual impressions with standard maritime intelligence. Reports emphasized not only the fleeting glimpses but also the psychological effect on crews, who described a growing sense of tension as the USO's behavior remained inexplicable. Commands deliberated on responses, from deploying additional ships and aircraft to initiating sonar sweeps, each step measured to avoid panic or confusion while seeking clarity. The balance between caution and inquiry underscored the unprecedented nature of the phenomenon, leaving the fleet caught between routine operations and an unfolding enigma. Wind, cloud cover, and scattered sunlight refracted across the waves, creating illusions of additional forms and complicating every visual confirmation of the USO. At times, the anomaly seemed to multiply, while at others, it disappeared entirely, swallowed by shadows and reflection. Crew members struggled to distinguish genuine observation from optical deception, and repeated sightings often required corroboration from multiple vantage points. These atmospheric and sea state variables heightened the suspense, ensuring that even confirmed sightings retained an element of ambiguity, and reinforcing the impression that the object was both present and adept at eluding comprehension. Over several days, sightings repeated under varying conditions, each encounter slightly different, reinforcing the sense of an entity both present and elusive. Some reports noted strange glints at unusual angles, as though the object's surface reflected light selectively, while others documented sudden surges of motion beneath the surface that left sonar traces disappearing without explanation. Each repetition built a narrative of mystery, suggesting that the USO maintained some form of awareness or intentionality, appearing intermittently yet purposefully, compelling observers to continue recording every encounter, despite the frustration of limited clarity. Sonar and radar data offered hints of scale and speed, yet none of the readings provided a clear profile, leaving analysts frustrated and intrigued in equal measure. Depth measurements fluctuated within impossible margins, sometimes indicating a mass comparable in size to a small naval vessel, and at other times suggesting something far larger. Velocity estimates were equally inconsistent, occasionally implying acceleration far beyond conventional submarine capabilities. These inconsistencies intensified the enigma, challenging both the technology of the era and the theoretical models used to interpret deepwater observations. Comparisons to known sea traffic, marine life, or natural phenomena proved futile. Each attempt to categorize the anomaly was undermined by its irregular behavior and elusive presence. Dolphin pods, conventional submarines, and even floating debris failed to match the recorded patterns or appearances. Naval scientists examined the physical characteristics, glints, wakes, sonar profiles, yet every proposed explanation fell short, leaving a void between observation and understanding. The anomaly resisted classification, inhabiting a liminal space between the known and the unknown, and fostering the unnerving sense that the Mediterranean had concealed a secret beyond standard maritime knowledge. Declassified NATO communications and subsequent witness testimonies confirmed the object's appearances, documenting a sequence of unexplained encounters that remain a point of debate among naval historians. Official logs described the sightings without speculation, noting the correlation between visual observations, sonar contacts, and anomalous radar returns. Analysts acknowledged the event's uniqueness, emphasizing that no conventional explanation accounted for the object's behavior. The archival documentation provides rare confirmation, anchoring a tale of fleeting erratic presence within factual, verifiable records while preserving the mystery of the anomaly. Even after the fleets dispersed, questions persisted. Its size, form, and motives remained unknown, and no conclusive evidence ever emerged to demystify its presence. Researchers continued to study the logs and corroborate witness accounts for decades, yet the USO remained an enigma, neither explained by marine biology, human engineering, nor natural oceanographic phenomena. The Mediterranean waters, once animated by fleeting glimpses of the object, returned to normalcy, but the event left a lingering sense of uncertainty that haunted observers who had glimpsed the impossible. As the Mediterranean waters returned to calm, the USO left no trace, yet the memory of its erratic passage lingered, a secret the sea refused to relinquish. The Lake Ontario submerged craft reports of the 1970s. In the quiet expanse of Lake Ontario, fishermen and sailors alike recalled fleeting disturbances during the 1970s, as if the deep waters themselves concealed a deliberate, elusive presence that defied explanation. Boaters described moments when the lake, normally placid, seemed alive with subtle motion, ripples forming in patterns inconsistent with wind or passing traffic. Local mariners reported vessels returning with unnerving tales of sudden currents and shadowy forms glimpsed beneath the surface. These incidents were initially dismissed as a coincidence, yet their occurrence across multiple summers suggested something more tangible, something that operated beneath the lake with a rhythm entirely its own. One evening, a small motorboat operator spotted a dark, glistening shape cutting through the waves before vanishing into the depths, leaving only a trail of unsettled water in its wake. The observer, accustomed to navigating these waters for decades, described the object as unlike any known boat or floating debris. It did not produce the typical wake, nor did it react predictably to the boat's approach. The sudden disappearance, without a ripple or disturbance, unsettled the operator, who recorded the sighting in a personal log and later reported it to local authorities, adding to a growing collection of unexplained encounters. The lake's surface occasionally erupted in sudden ripples and small whirlpools, entirely unaccounted for by wind or passing vessels, prompting questions that lingered long after each event. Recreational boaters reported these phenomena, noting how the water appeared to pulse and shift beneath them. Even when no object could be seen, the physical effects on the water suggested the presence of a sizable mass below, moving with purpose yet remaining hidden from view. These disturbances, subtle but repeated, became the hallmark of the USO's activity, leaving a tangible imprint of its passage while preserving the mystery of its form. Fog and early morning mist often cloaked the water, creating conditions where glimpses of a metallic sheen or a subtle shadow could ignite both wonder and alarm among witnesses. Under these conditions, the USO seemed to emerge almost at will, reflecting the faint morning light or disappearing into the mist with near impossible speed. Observers described moments when the water appeared to bend or shimmer around the object, as if the lake itself were accommodating something foreign. These ethereal effects lent an almost spectral quality to the sightings, making documentation challenging and a rational explanation. Occasional sonar contacts recorded by local research boats added a technical dimension to the mystery, though measurements were erratic and failed to provide a consistent profile of the submerged craft. Technicians noted strange echoes that would appear at unusual depths or disappear entirely when approached. Attempts to triangulate size or speed produced contradictory results. Some readings suggested a vessel comparable to a small submarine, while others implied something significantly larger. These inconsistent data points, when combined with eyewitness accounts, reinforced the impression of an anomaly operating outside conventional understanding. Witnesses described a vaguely cylindrical form, smooth and dark, sometimes appearing almost reflective in the sparse light, defying any conventional description of known vessels. Observers struggled to estimate dimensions as perspective and water conditions obscured scale. Some described protrusions or angles hinting at deliberate design, yet no consistent pattern emerged across reports. The object's ambiguous form allowed imagination and speculation to fill gaps, while its repeated visibility confirmed that it was not purely a trick of perception. Each description added layers to a narrative of something intentionally hidden, yet unmistakably present. Reports over multiple summers revealed a pattern of recurring appearances, each encounter adding conflicting yet intriguing details about size, movement, and behaviour. Sightings occurred in similar areas near shipping lanes or fishing grounds, yet no clear schedule or trigger could be discerned. Some observers noted brief accelerations or sudden dives, while others recorded long periods of inactivity just beneath the surface. The recurrence over several years rather than a single incident suggested a persistent presence, a phenomenon neither seasonal nor entirely random, reinforcing the notion that Lake Ontario had become a repository of a lasting underwater enigma. Speculation flourished. Some proposed secret military experiments, others considered unknown aquatic life, while skeptics attributed sightings to optical illusions or unusual currents. Each theory met partial support but failed to encompass the full range of observations. Military involvement was plausible given Cold War-era testing in North American waters, yet no official exercises coincided precisely with the sightings. Biological explanations, including unknown fish or mammalian species, could not account for the object's size, speed, or irregular appearances. The unresolved nature of these possibilities only heightened fascination among witnesses and later researchers. Documents held by the Coast Guard and local maritime offices confirm these encounters, noting the mysterious presence without offering any resolution or clear identification. Official memos reference repeated reports from civilian vessels, remarking on unusual water disturbances, sonar blips, and fleeting sightings. The absence of definitive conclusions in these records emphasizes the object's elusiveness, and the careful language of the documents underscores the tension between acknowledging anomalous activity and avoiding unfounded claims. The USO's presence was treated seriously, yet it remained frustratingly undefined. Local newspapers chronicled the growing public fascination, publishing witness statements alongside illustrations that attempted to capture the submerged object's fleeting forms. Letters to the editor and community discussions reflected a mixture of fear, curiosity, and skepticism. Cartoonists and illustrators rendered the USO with imaginative variations, while journalists noted the recurring nature of sightings without resorting to sensationalism. This blend of factual reporting and cultural reaction reinforced the anomaly's impact beyond immediate observers, embedding the mystery into local consciousness while leaving its true nature unresolved. As decades passed, the reports remained a mix of credible accounts and unsolved riddles, leaving historians and enthusiasts alike to ponder what had truly moved beneath the lake's placid surface. Modern investigations, including archival research and interviews with surviving witnesses, have catalogued these occurrences but provided no conclusive explanation. The combination of eyewitness testimony, sonar ambiguity, and environmental complexity preserves a delicate balance between fact and uncertainty. Lake Ontario, in its vast and shadowed depths, continues to hold these accounts as evidence of something both real and inscrutable, a presence at once observed and ungraspable. Even now, Lake Ontario holds its secrets beneath undisturbed waters, guarding the memory of craft that may have existed only long enough to be glimpsed and never fully understood. The Andaman Sea sonar anomaly logged by Indian naval forces. Over the vast stretches of the Andaman Sea, Indian naval patrols of the late 20th century began recording subtle disturbances that seemed to hint at a presence moving in the ocean's depths. Reports from routine missions initially appeared as brief sonar anomalies, fleeting blips that were almost immediately dismissed as interference from underwater topography or atmospheric conditions. Yet the pattern persisted across multiple vessels and patrol cycles, compelling commanding officers to take notice. Small-scale reconnaissance vessels, equipped with early sonar arrays, registered echoes that did not correspond to known submarines, debris, or natural phenomena, hinting at a submerged object that operated in deliberate yet mysterious ways. During routine sonar sweeps, technicians noted fleeting contacts at mid-depths, appearing and disappearing with such irregularity that they resisted conventional classification. These transient echoes lacked the continuity typical of submarines or ocean currents, appearing for only seconds before fading entirely. On several occasions, sonar operators recalibrated equipment and retraced their paths to confirm the readings, yet the anomaly remained elusive. Each repetition reinforced the impression that something occupied the waters intentionally, moving with a precision that seemed almost intelligent, while remaining inaccessible to verification by the instruments of the era. The anomaly's movements confounded expectations. Some readings suggested sudden bursts of speed, while others indicated near-stationary behaviour along underwater ridges. One patrol noted a contact that appeared to traverse a kilometre in mere minutes before halting abruptly over a trench, defying standard naval understanding of propulsion at those depths. Observers were struck by its apparent control over buoyancy and velocity, qualities not consistent with known marine technology or vessels. The oscillation between rapid and slow movement amplified the mystery, giving the impression of a presence fully aware of the patrols but unconcerned with being definitively observed. Underwater topography in the region, steep trenches, jagged ridges and volcanic slopes added complexity to interpreting the sonar echoes, creating a layer of ambiguity that persisted across multiple patrols. The Andaman Sea's seabed contains a mosaic of tectonic features, channels, and unexpected depressions that can distort sound waves unpredictably. Yet the persistence of echoes in consistent locations suggested that the anomaly was not merely a trick of sonar reflection. The readings implied intentional navigation through this complex terrain, with the object adjusting its depth and course in ways that seemed to respect geological formations rather than collide with them. On a rare clear day, bridge officers reported an indistinct silhouette shimmering through the water, fleeting enough to vanish before full assessment, yet sufficient to corroborate sonar data. Sunlight filtered through shallow currents, casting shifting patterns that seemed to outline a dark, elongated mass gliding just beneath the surface. The observers, trained to distinguish marine life from human-made vessels, could not identify the object with certainty. Its reflective surface and unusual shape lent the encounter an almost surreal quality, reinforcing the notion that the anomaly combined both tangible and inscrutable characteristics, visible only when environmental conditions permitted. Over successive patrol cycles, patterns began to emerge, revealing that the anomaly's appearances were intermittent but consistently concentrated along certain deep channels. Patrol logs indicated repeated sightings along a stretch of water that coincided with previously unmapped depressions and undersea ridges. Analysts hypothesized that the object may be using these features for concealment or navigation. The persistence of activity in these specific corridors suggested more than chance, indicating that the anomaly operated with a discernible, albeit mysterious strategy, repeating movements over days and weeks while leaving human observers unable to anticipate its trajectory. Sonar returns sometimes produced echoes larger than any known submarine or underwater vehicle, then diminished in intensity in a manner inconsistent with natural distortion. Variations in signal strength and shape suggested a complex structure, potentially encompassing multiple interconnected elements. At times, the contact appeared nearly spherical, while other readings implied elongated or segmented forms. The inconsistency baffled operators, who struggled to reconcile the object's apparent size with its disappearance from subsequent scans. Each detection challenged conventional assumptions about underwater acoustics, leaving the anomaly simultaneously measurable and fundamentally unknowable. Naval operations adapted cautiously, adjusting routes and search protocols to accommodate the unidentified presence, which lingered quietly yet influenced strategic planning. Patrol schedules were revised to avoid potentially hazardous encounters, and communication protocols were updated to log anomalies immediately for follow-up investigation. Even routine exercises were affected, as vessels maintained heightened awareness in sectors of frequent activity. The anomaly's elusive nature introduced a subtle tension to naval operations, reminding crews that the Undersea contained depths not yet mastered or understood. Speculation ranged from undiscovered marine life to secret experimental vessels, yet no single explanation could account for the anomaly's repeated behaviour across months of observation. Biologists considered the possibility of a colossal unknown species inhabiting the region's deep trenches, while defence analysts weighed the chance of covert technology developed during a period of heightened Cold War activity in the Indian Ocean. Each hypothesis carried gaps, either in biology, engineering feasibility, or corroborating evidence, leaving the anomaly unresolved. The combination of natural and artificial possibilities only deepened the mystery, suggesting a phenomenon that resisted singular categorization. Official logs and declassified patrol summaries confirm repeated contacts, documenting them with precision while acknowledging the enduring absence of definitive identification. The Indian Navy maintained meticulous records, noting the time, depth, location, and environmental conditions of each encounter. These documents provide a rare, verifiable foundation for the anomaly, establishing it as a phenomenon recognized by trained professionals rather than anecdotal witnesses. Yet the absence of conclusions, coupled with the repeated inability to capture or retrieve the object, underscores the enigma's persistence in the record. Mariners and researchers continue to recount the Undersea anomaly as an enigma that challenges comprehension, leaving only traces and conjecture in its wake. Testimonies passed down through naval instruction and oral histories describe sonar blips, fleeting silhouettes, and the unnerving sense of something both present and inaccessible. Scientific interest has waxed and waned over the decades, but the anomaly's ability to evade conclusive identification has cemented its reputation as a mystery of the deep, one that lingers at the boundary between documented observation and the unexplained. A mysterious shape still glides silently through the Andaman Sea, detectable only in fleeting signals that defy capture or explanation. The Antarctic shelf object detected beneath the Ross Sea. A pale, frozen horizon stretched endlessly across the Ross Sea, where drifting icebergs and jagged shelves made navigation treacherous and visibility fleeting, hinting at secrets lying just out of reach below the surface. Research stations on the ice reported subtle shifts in water temperature and unexpected acoustic anomalies, while naval and scientific vessels maneuvered cautiously through fractured flows. The extreme cold intensified the isolation, leaving crews constantly aware that beneath the waves, an unknown presence could occupy regions that humans barely penetrated. Every observation of the deep became a delicate negotiation with the environment, where nothing behaved predictably and the margin for error was minimal. Early survey readings produced intermittent echoes that vanished almost as soon as they appeared, suggesting the presence of something vast and unlike any mapped underwater formation. These signals often emerged at unexpected depths, and attempts to triangulate their position were frustrated by the shifting ice above and strong sub-ice currents. Researchers noted how the anomalies resisted repetition, disappearing for hours before returning in slightly altered locations. Each return was studied meticulously, with teams adjusting instruments and recalibrating sonar arrays, yet no conventional explanation, rock formations, large marine animals, or equipment error fully accounted for the consistent intensity of the signals. Submersibles lowered into frigid waters recorded temperature gradients and current shifts, yet even the most sophisticated instruments returned signals suggesting a massive, unmapped structure lurking in the depths. The vehicles, designed to endure crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures, revealed nothing visually. Their cameras captured only darkness punctuated by drifting ice and occasional sediment plumes. Depth measurements indicated that the anomaly lay hundreds of meters below the surface, resting along the continental shelf in an area rarely traversed. Every descent became a blend of anticipation and unease. the crews acutely aware that the icy environment amplified both the risks and the mystery. Examinations of the recurring returns hinted at a form both immense and geometrically unusual, alternating between apparent stillness and slow, deliberate motion along the Antarctic shelf. Analysts described the readings as resembling structures with edges and angles inconsistent with natural topography, though the limitations of sonar left room for ambiguity. Researchers debated whether the apparent movement was a result of shifting ice, water currents, or the object itself, yet no measurement could conclusively resolve the question. Each anomaly challenged assumptions about what could exist in such a remote, forbidding environment, pushing the boundaries of conventional scientific explanation. Old expedition notes from earlier decades contained cryptic references to unexplained readings in the same sector, suggesting a recurring phenomenon long overlooked by mainstream science. Logs from mid-20th century Antarctic missions mentioned unidentified underwater formations and sudden, inexplicable acoustic disturbances, often dismissed as equipment anomalies. Revisiting these accounts revealed a pattern. Multiple teams, separated by years, had encountered echoes resembling those recorded in contemporary surveys. The alignment of these independent observations lent credibility to the notion of a persistent object, though its nature remained inaccessible, hidden beneath layers of ice and seawater that few had ever penetrated. Natural explanations, undersea ice caverns, sediment mounds, or submerged ridges, failed to account for the consistent size and shape implied by repeated echoes. Geologists noted that the continental shelf in this region consisted mainly of glacial deposits and jagged rock, lacking formations large enough to produce the detected signals. Marine biologists ruled out any known species of deep-sea life capable of creating similar acoustic signatures at such depths. The convergence of data from multiple instruments suggested that what lay beneath the Ross Sea was neither conventional geology nor biology, raising questions about what could occupy a world so remote and hostile. Scientists and naval crews spoke of an unnerving presence, their voices carrying tension as they described encounters that equipment could measure but human senses could barely interpret. Long hours of monitoring displays left personnel fatigued, yet unable to ignore fleeting blips or unexpected shifts in acoustic readings. Even under strict protocols, speculation arose quietly among teams, a mix of curiosity and apprehension, tempered by professional caution. The combination of isolation, extreme cold, and unexplained phenomena fostered a subtle dread, as though the Ross Sea itself was guarding a secret beyond human comprehension, resistant to observation or interference. Movements appeared deliberate. The object seemed to navigate along channels shaped by the shelf, yet maneuvered in ways impossible for conventional vessels or submersibles. Observers noted that signals shifted slowly in orientation and intensity, sometimes evading precise tracking by automated systems. Even when vessels attempted to follow a trajectory suggested by sonar readings, the anomaly appeared to adjust its position, remaining just beyond direct observation. These subtle evasions created an impression of sentience or at least responsiveness, though no evidence of propulsion or mechanical operation could be detected, deepening the enigma surrounding the Ross Sea object. Cold, dense waters created distortion and interference, frustrating attempts to capture clear images or verify dimensions, leaving only cryptic data to tease the mind. Acoustic shadows, temperature layers, and microcurrents combined to warp sonar returns, producing inconsistent impressions of size and shape. Remote vehicles were often forced to retreat when ice above shifted unpredictably, while instruments occasionally froze or malfunctioned. Each technical limitation reinforced the isolation and the unknowable nature of the object, suggesting a reality that existed on the edge of perception and remained largely immune to human inquiry. Repeated missions and technological advances yielded no further clarity, leaving the Ross Sea's icy waters as enigmatic and unyielding as ever. Scientists compiled detailed reports, charts, and sonar maps, yet the anomaly resisted classification. Each expedition returned with new data, but every answer seemed to generate further questions, as if the object itself was deliberately evasive. The combination of environmental extremity and technological limitation preserved the mystery, making it clear that the Antarctic shelf could harbour phenomena utterly unlike anything catalogued elsewhere on Earth. Every recorded signal, each fleeting echo beneath the ice, reminded observers that something unknown and persistent inhabits a world almost entirely beyond human reach. Crew members reported moments of acute unease, as though the vast silence of the polar seas pressed down upon them, amplifying the subtle presence of the anomaly. The contrast between detailed measurements and the inability to fully comprehend or visualize the object reinforced its alien quality, suggesting that some secrets of the Ross Sea might remain hidden indefinitely, shielded by layers of ice, pressure, and time. A shadowy form endures below the ice, its existence known only through fleeting signals that evade all attempts to illuminate or approach it. The 1968 USS Swordfish collision with an unknown submerged object. The USS Swordfish moved steadily through the cold North Atlantic depths when an abrupt, forceful impact shattered the rhythm of the patrol, sending vibrations through the hull that defied conventional explanation. The crew had been conducting a routine navigation exercise, charting bathymetric features and maintaining course along a familiar patrol route, when the sudden jolt disrupted every system aboard. No sonar contacts had preceded the collision, and no warning appeared on the instruments, leaving officers and enlisted personnel alike scrambling to assess what had struck the submarine. Within seconds, the atmosphere inside the control room shifted from routine monotony to urgent alertness. Control panels rattled as unusual tremors coursed through the vessel, their origin unclear, hinting at a massive presence lurking in the shadows beneath the ocean. The vibrations were not rhythmic like propeller wash or natural turbulence. They pulsed irregularly, rising and falling with an intensity that made it impossible to attribute them to standard environmental forces. Crew members immediately scanned the sonar displays, but the echoes that appeared were fleeting, inconsistent, and seemingly impossible to interpret. It was as if the object existed at the edge of technological detection, massive enough to affect the submarine physically yet elusive enough to remain undefined in acoustic readings. The surrounding waters seemed to ripple with unnatural energy, currents twisting unpredictably around the submarine as the crew grappled with the immediate shock of an invisible collision. Cold, dense layers of the Atlantic shifted in ways that instruments could register but could not explain. Ballast readings fluctuated briefly, producing minor shifts in depth, while water intake systems registered uncharacteristic pressure changes. The officers on watch exchanged concerned glances, each recognizing that they were witnessing an encounter that had no precedent in Swordfish's prior patrols or in the Navy's known operational records for this sector of the Atlantic. Inspecting the hull, officers found indentations that suggested contact with an object far larger than any known marine creature, leaving a tangible mark of the unknown on the steel exterior. The curvature and depth of the dents were irregular, inconsistent with ice flows or submerged debris, and the pattern offered no clues about the object's shape or origin. Temporary bracing measures were taken to reinforce affected compartments, and engineers meticulously photographed and logged the damage for later review. Every mark seemed to raise further questions rather than provide answers, presenting a physical record of something vast and enigmatic hidden beneath the waves. Sonar readings produced erratic echoes, irregular in size and frequency, signaling a form or structure that had no precedent among conventional vessels or documented underwater formations. The initial post-collision scans captured short, sharp reflections, interspersed with diffuse, elongated blips that appeared to shift position without discernible pattern. Attempts to categorize the echoes as marine life, underwater topography, or mechanical interference proved futile. Even seasoned sonar technicians admitted that the data defied interpretation, offering tantalizing glimpses of an entity that existed beyond the conventional parameters of known oceanic phenomena. Whispers of uncertainty filled the corridors as the sailors recounted the submarine's sudden jolts and the inexplicable disturbances in ballast and internal water flow that accompanied the impact. Crew members described fleeting shadows in the dim, red-lighted control rooms, moments when internal instruments fluctuated in ways that seemed to mirror movements outside the hull. These impressions, though intangible, added to the mounting tension, creating an atmosphere of anxious speculation. Conversations that usually concerned engine efficiency or navigational checks turned to silent, careful observation, as if everyone aboard felt that something unseen had briefly made itself known. Previous patrol maps did not guide the anomaly encountered, and instruments calibrated for known topography failed to account for the unexpected geometry revealed in the aftermath. Depth charts, plotted meticulously over prior months, could not explain the size or location of the object. Nothing on the maps corresponded to the collisions or subsequent sonar traces. Even geological formations known in this sector could not account for the sudden impact, leaving the crew to acknowledge that the encounter existed outside conventional understanding, embedded instead in the realm of unexplained maritime phenomena. Naval technical teams later examined the logs, searching for mechanical faults or environmental explanations, yet the incident stubbornly resisted any conventional interpretation. Internal assessments confirmed that the submarine had been fully operational and that all systems functioned correctly leading up to the collision. Oceanographic data showed no evidence of storms, ice movements, or unusual currents that could have caused such an abrupt jolt. Analysts documented the event as anomalous, creating a detailed file of measurements, damage reports, and fleeting sonar contacts, all pointing towards an entity whose nature remained unknown. In the hours and days that followed, fleeting sonar traces appeared sporadically, hinting that whatever had collided with the swordfish remained present, yet unidentifiable in the deep. Brief echoes, too irregular to categorize, occasionally returned to the sonar consoles, sometimes moving with unusual velocity, other times lingering just out of reach. Attempts to maneuver toward these contacts were hampered by safety protocols and the vessel's operational limitations, leaving the crew with only indirect evidence of a presence that seemed both vast and elusive. The object, if it persisted, was as silent as it was mysterious. Limitations of 1960s submarine technology prevented the crew from capturing visual confirmation, leaving only fragmented acoustic signals to document a presence that remained largely invisible. Sonar resolution, photographic capability, and lighting equipment of the era offered no possibility of direct observation at the depths involved. The crew could only infer size, speed, and movement from the vibrations and acoustic signatures that remained, producing more questions than answers. Every measurement recorded seemed to confirm the reality of the collision, while simultaneously defying classification, a paradox that reinforced the enigma of the North Atlantic encounter. The incident became a point of speculation and study within naval circles, recorded in official files as an unresolved anomaly that challenged existing knowledge of the deep. Subsequent patrols of the area yielded no definitive evidence, and no similar collision was officially documented in the sector for many years. Files indicate that the event was considered significant, not as a threat, but as an unexplained occurrence that required monitoring and careful recording. Even among seasoned naval officers, the swordfish collision remained a cautionary tale of the unknown, a reminder that beneath the ocean's surface there could be phenomena wholly beyond comprehension. In the vast darkness of the North Atlantic, the object that struck the swordfish continued to elude detection, a silent enigma lurking where no eyes could reach. Norway's Hesteland-linked underwater activity. For decades, the remote Hesteland Valley in central Norway has been the site of a persistent and perplexing phenomenon: bright, erratic lights that appear without warning against the night sky. Known simply as the Hesteland Lights, these luminous orbs have been observed hovering, darting, or lingering above the valley floor in a way that defies conventional explanation. Residents report sudden flashes that illuminate entire ridges, followed by a slow drift or instantaneous disappearance, leaving no trace. While most attention has focused on these aerial anomalies, some researchers and enthusiasts have suggested that related phenomena might extend beneath the surface, hinting at an unusual connection between sky and sea. The valley itself is a narrow corridor carved by glacial activity, flanked by steep hills and deep mineral-rich soil that can amplify electromagnetic effects. Streams and small lakes wind through its floor, emptying into fjords that lead toward the Norwegian coast. This unique geography may contribute to the peculiar behaviour of the Hesteland Lights, but it also raises questions about the interaction between the terrestrial, aquatic, and atmospheric environments. Scientists theorise that energy discharges or ionisation could manifest not only in the air, but in nearby water bodies, creating conditions that produce faint sonar or electromagnetic disturbances off the fjords. Formal observation of the Hesteland Lights began with Project Hesteland in 1983, when volunteers established a network of cameras, magnetometers, and radar equipment designed to document the erratic phenomena. Over the years, the instruments recorded a spectrum of behaviours, from slow glows and stationary illuminations to rapid, darting movements that exceeded any known aerial vehicle. Some radar readings suggested physical presence, even when visual confirmation was lacking, lending an unsettling credibility to what had once been dismissed as folklore. In these early studies, the question arose, could similar forces operate below the surface, hidden from human eyes yet detectable by instruments? Observers consistently note patterns that suggest more than random atmospheric anomalies. Lights appear in repeated locations, occasionally forming clusters, and display accelerations that challenge known physical limits. While no verified underwater object has been documented in the Hessdalen Valley itself, the nearby fjords and coastal waters occasionally exhibit strange sonar echoes and unexplained readings. These returns, though intermittent, hint at the possibility of submerged entities or natural phenomena that mimic intelligent movement, echoing the unpredictable yet purposeful motion of the aerial lights above. Some researchers have speculated that the underlying cause may involve complex electromagnetic interactions with the region's geology. Hessdalen sits atop deposits of quartz and other minerals that, under stress, can generate electrical charges. When combined with atmospheric conditions, these charges could theoretically create luminous plasma in the air and subtle energy fluctuations in nearby water. While this remains a theory, it suggests a mechanism by which airborne anomalies and undersea disturbances could be loosely connected, offering a tantalizing bridge between documented light activity and reports of unusual sonar contacts along Norway's fjords. Residents recount experiences that deepen the mystery. Farmers and hunters describe seeing lights descend towards small lakes or rivers before retreating skyward, sometimes accompanied by a faint hum or vibration. Eyewitnesses speak of reflections on water surfaces that behave unlike any known object, hinting at the presence of something beneath the surface. While anecdotal, these accounts have drawn the attention of investigative teams seeking correlations between the movements of the Hessdalen lights and minor but unexplained disturbances detected in adjacent waterways. Advances in automated monitoring have allowed Project Hessdalen to maintain continuous surveillance since 1998, revealing long-term trends in light activity. Data shows that the phenomenon is not seasonal, appearing unpredictably throughout the year and occasionally coinciding with magnetic anomalies or weather changes. This unpredictability parallels the erratic sonar readings reported by naval observers in Norwegian coastal waters who have recorded fast-moving, unexplained objects in fjords and nearshore environments. Though there is no direct link, the parallel behaviour of aerial and underwater anomalies invites consideration of a broader regional pattern. The interdisciplinary nature of these investigations highlights the challenge of distinguishing natural from potentially engineered phenomena. Physicists, geologists, and atmospheric scientists have explored everything from plasma formations to ionospheric disturbances, yet no single explanation has emerged. The potential for electromagnetic energy to manifest in both the air and water suggests that Hessdalen could be a natural laboratory for observing phenomena that straddle both domains. Researchers remain cautious, emphasizing that while correlations are intriguing, causation has not been established. What makes Hessdalen particularly compelling is the repeated observation of intelligence-like patterns. Lights do not merely flash at random, they respond to terrain features, appear to track observers, and sometimes cluster in ways that defy statistical probability. These characteristics echo reports from other regions where unidentified submerged objects have been observed, moving deliberately, avoiding obstacles, and appearing and disappearing without conventional propulsion. The suggestion that similar principles could govern both the valley's aerial lights and adjacent underwater anomalies deepens the mystery, even as it remains speculative. Despite decades of investigation, the Hessdalen phenomenon resists full explanation. Continuous data collection has created a robust archive of photographic, radar, and magnetometer evidence, yet the underlying mechanisms remain elusive. The uncertainty fuels fascination, drawing scientists and enthusiasts who are willing to confront the unknown without succumbing to sensationalism. In Hessdalen, observation and theory coexist uneasily, a reminder that even in the age of advanced measurement, some phenomena remain on the fringe of comprehension. Ultimately, Hessdalen is a place where the boundaries between the known and the unknown are porous. The lights illuminate more than the valley floor. They illuminate our curiosity, inviting inquiry into a natural world that is stranger than most admit. While no conclusive evidence links these aerial mysteries to objects lurking in nearby fjords, the combination of persistent unexplained lights and intermittent underwater anomalies leaves the region shrouded in unresolved questions, a liminal zone where science encounters its limits and speculation is tempered by fact. And somewhere beneath the dark waters of Norway's fjords, the echoes of unseen forces may continue their silent dance, waiting for eyes or ears keen enough to perceive them. The 1978 Brazilian Navy USO pursuit of Colares Island. Under the heavy tropical sky off Colares Island, naval crews first glimpsed movements in the water that did not belong to any known vessel or marine animal. The night was unusually still, with only the lapping of waves against the hull to break the silence, yet sensors and vigilant watchmen registered flashes of light and disturbances in patterns that refused explanation. What began as fleeting glimmers evolved into something persistent, a presence that seemed to skirt the line between ocean and air, leaving officers unsettled by a phenomenon that defied the known limits of technology and human perception. For years, residents of the Para coastline had whispered of strange lights and sudden ripples that danced across the shallow bays, yet 1978 brought the attention of official authorities for the first time. A surge of reports, both visual and recorded, described fast-moving aerial objects that occasionally seemed to interact with the surface waters. Local fishermen spoke of sudden disturbances around their boats' wakes that appeared with no preceding craft, an eerie phosphorescence along the waterline. These accounts prompted the Brazilian Navy to deploy patrols to monitor and document the anomalies with both visual teams and sonar instruments. On board the patrol ships, sonar operators grew tense as unexplained blips shifted erratically, defying conventional tracking and prompting repeated calls across the deck. Instruments registered objects that moved with unusual speed and agility, sometimes vanishing only to reappear moments later at a different bearing. Crew members reported flashes at the water's surface, fleeting reflections that could not be reconciled with known vessels. The uncertainty created a charged atmosphere where anticipation and fear merged, and every creak of the ship or distant splash became a potential clue to the entity's movements. Local reports described the objects moving with sudden bursts of speed, often skimming just above the water's surface, leaving faint phosphorescent trails in their wake. The Brazilian Navy compiled these observations alongside weather logs and maritime traffic records, noting that many sightings occurred during calm, moonless nights when visibility was otherwise minimal. Patrol ships were strategically dispatched based on patterns emerging from civilian accounts, highlighting a rare instance of naval coordination guided largely by eyewitness data. These early analyses suggested that the objects were not merely drifting phenomena, but actively maneuvering, capable of responding to both environmental conditions and the approach of human vessels. The object beneath the waves exhibited a fluidity that seemed almost conscious, weaving between currents and disappearing beneath the foam, as if testing the crew's patience. At times, it rose near the surface, catching glints of moonlight that revealed a form unlike any submarine or marine animal known to the Navy. Observers noted rapid accelerations and sudden directional shifts that suggested a mastery of the aquatic environment beyond conventional understanding. The ocean itself seemed to respond, waves curling in unusual patterns and reflecting light in a way that intensified the mystery surrounding the encounter. Eyes strained against the darkness, and the crew reported sudden glimmers at the surface, brief reflections that vanished the instant they were noticed, leaving only anticipation. Officers attempted to coordinate visual observation with sonar tracking, yet the data frequently contradicted itself, as if the object eluded not only human sight, but also technological detection. Conversations on deck grew cautious, with crew members recounting glimpses and anomalies in hushed tones, each story layering onto the uncertainty and heightening the sense that something entirely unknown was operating in their midst. The waters surrounding Colares are shaped by complex tides and hidden channels, where currents twist unpredictably, adding a layer of disorientation to any attempt to interpret what lies beneath. The region's shallow reefs and narrow inlets created blind spots that could conceal or reveal the USO at random, leaving observers uncertain whether they had witnessed an actual movement or a trick of light on churning water. atmospheric conditions compounded the challenge. Humid tropical air produced mirages and reflections that confounded visual tracking, while sonar signals fluctuated under varying water densities. Navigational commands shifted rapidly as officers attempted to close the distance, yet each maneuver was met by evasive responses that seemed to anticipate their actions. The object did not simply move, it appeared to observe, to respond, and then vanish at will, leaving the crew to speculate whether intelligence guided its path. Attempts to surround or corner the anomaly failed repeatedly, with sonar pings registering fleeting contacts that disappeared before they could be confirmed. Every successful observation only deepened the enigma, revealing capabilities that could not be attributed to known technology or natural marine behaviour. Back at headquarters, analysts pored over the sonar readings, noting patterns that could not be explained by ordinary ships, sea life, or known geological phenomena. Repeated echoes suggested sudden bursts of speed and complex manoeuvring, yet no physical trace of a craft or creature was ever recovered. The Brazilian Navy meticulously documented each encounter, combining eyewitness reports, radar charts, and sonar logs, but even the most careful analysis yielded more questions than answers. For every anomaly captured, there seemed to be an equal number that vanished before corroboration, leaving the pursuit incomplete and unresolved. The pursuit in Colares was far from isolated. Other nearby coastal waters had long been reported as hotspots for unusual activity, hinting at an unseen presence beneath the region's waves. Maritime logs and local records describe mysterious wakes, transient lights, and sudden disturbances occurring sporadically over decades. While these incidents remained unconfirmed or were quickly attributed to natural or human activity, the 1978 pursuit stood out for its official documentation and the direct engagement by naval forces. The phenomenon seemed to hint at a broader pattern, one that combined human observation, fleeting visual evidence, and technological detection in a tapestry of uncertainty. Even seasoned naval personnel confessed to an unease they could not quantify, caught between empirical evidence and the unnerving sensation of encountering something beyond comprehension. The ocean's surface, ordinarily predictable, became an arena of suspense and unanswered questions, and the line between plausible and impossible blurred with every fleeting sonar contact and each momentary flash of light. Crew members spoke quietly of something alive in the water, though no known creature or submarine fit the observed behaviour. The human experience of witnessing these anomalies became as compelling and mysterious as the data collected by instruments. As the patrols continued and dawn approached, the object had vanished without a trace, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and restless curiosity among all who had witnessed it. The Brazilian Navy's records, though precise in detail, preserved the anomaly's elusiveness, emphasizing the tension between scientific measurement and phenomena that resist comprehension. Even decades later, analysts and witnesses alike returned to the logs and testimonies, intrigued by an encounter that remains unresolved, a mystery that hints at forces or technologies unknown, operating quietly just beyond the edge of observation. In the waters off Colares, an unseen presence still glides, leaving only traces of wonder and uncertainty that ripple far beyond the reach of any observer. The Caspian Sea's repeated submerged light sightings. For decades, local communities along the Caspian's northern shores have recounted strange occurrences that defied explanation, whispered stories of lights appearing where none should exist. Elder fishermen spoke of glowing forms rising briefly from the water before disappearing, sometimes illuminating the mist in ways that seemed almost deliberate. Over time, such stories drew attention not just for their frequency, but for their persistence, as witnesses described patterns across decades. The Caspian, an inland sea bordered by multiple nations, became a backdrop to a mystery that blended folklore with observation, hinting at something submerged and active far beyond ordinary comprehension. Official attention increased when reports suggested the anomalies were not isolated incidents, prompting sporadic monitoring by naval and scientific teams. Patrol vessels were dispatched to chart areas of recurring activity, and local authorities recorded visual and sonar observations with increasing diligence. Some reports described luminous forms moving in unexpected ways, while others noted disturbances in the water where no vessel or marine creature should have been present. Each sighting, logged carefully, added layers to a puzzle that defied conventional explanation, suggesting a phenomenon that was both persistent and elusive. Sensitive equipment sometimes registered subtle signatures deep below the surface, movements that resisted conventional explanation and could not be linked to any known marine creature. Sonar operators noted objects that darted horizontally and vertically in ways that contradicted the capabilities of ordinary underwater vehicles. Even with multiple instruments cross-referencing data, the readings were inconsistent yet undeniably real. These signals often vanished before full tracking could occur, leaving gaps that intensified the mystery. Scientists and analysts found themselves questioning not just what was in the water, but whether they fully understood the environment in which it moved. On rare occasions, brief glimmers would break the surface, reflecting faintly off the murky waters before vanishing into darkness once more. Witnesses reported lights that varied in hue and intensity, sometimes hovering just above the waves, other times pulsing as if aware of being observed. Photographs and early video footage captured only fleeting impressions, the movements too rapid and sporadic to document completely. Observers struggled to reconcile these glimpses with the sonar readings, creating a tension between visual evidence and instrumental data that heightened the sense of uncertainty. During several nighttime patrols, specialized optical sensors captured brief yet unusually structured glows beneath the surface, moving with a consistency that hinted at controlled propulsion rather than drifting bioluminescence. The lights exhibited distinct pulsation rhythms, sometimes splitting into multiple smaller points before recombining into a single source, a phenomenon repeatedly noted in naval logs and corroborated by local fishermen. Depth measurements indicated that these luminous objects operated at varying layers, from near the surface to mid-depths of the Caspian, suggesting a remarkable ability to navigate the stratified waters. These observations reinforced the possibility that something intelligent and deliberately mobile was responsible for the recurring anomalies. Patterns emerged over time. The lights seemed drawn to particular regions, hinting at hidden pathways or semi-permanent zones beneath the Caspian's depths. Certain areas consistently hosted activity, suggesting that the objects were not merely passing through but selecting specific underwater locations. Analysts hypothesized that these zones could serve as temporary rest points or observation hubs, though no physical traces were ever found. The recurring presence across the same coordinates hinted at intelligence, intentionality, or perhaps a natural phenomenon entirely unrecognized by contemporary science. The unusual mixture of currents, temperature layers, and salinity created conditions that distorted perception and complicated attempts to study the phenomenon. The Caspian's water composition varied widely with depth and location, producing layers that could bend light or alter sonar readings. Atmospheric conditions, such as fog and wind shifts, amplified the difficulty of visual observation, creating illusions that were sometimes mistaken for the lights themselves. Researchers had to constantly adapt their methods, aware that the environment could conceal as much as it revealed, leaving them uncertain which anomalies were genuine and which were atmospheric trickery. Careful record-keeping revealed movements that defied oceanographic norms, suggesting a consistency that was impossible to attribute to chance. Even when patterns seemed established, anomalies would appear in unexpected areas, as if testing observers' expectations. Movements were sometimes abrupt, other times slow and deliberate, a combination that could not be reconciled with any known marine life. Analysts reviewed decades of reports and charts, noting how the phenomenon's persistence outpaced normal environmental fluctuation, hinting at an underlying logic that remained inaccessible. Those present often described a quiet, almost hypnotic suspense as the lights shimmered, seeming aware of being watched before retreating suddenly. There was a sense of tension that lingered in the air, subtle yet persistent, as if the observers themselves were part of a game played beneath the surface. Even experienced maritime personnel found themselves unnerved, recalling fleeting impressions of shapes and movements that left no lasting trace. The lights could appear at any time, yet each occurrence felt deliberate, heightening both curiosity and unease in those who encountered them. Investigators found no correlation between the sightings and human activity, geological events, or seasonal patterns, leaving the source entirely mysterious. Researchers cross-referenced shipping logs, seismic records, and environmental data, yet every avenue of explanation failed to account for the frequency, location, or behavior of the anomalies. Independent verification from multiple sources only strengthened the notion that the lights were not random. Each report seemed to confirm that the phenomenon existed outside the bounds of conventional understanding, challenging expectations about what could inhabit or traverse these waters. Sightings continued intermittently across decades, each event reinforcing the strange regularity and unpredictability of the phenomenon. Some were brief and barely noticeable, others were vivid, producing lingering impressions that witnesses would recount for years. The persistence of the anomalies suggested that the Caspian was home to something enduring, something that defied conventional maritime logic. Yet despite repeated observation, no physical evidence could confirm the light's nature, leaving them suspended between reality and speculation in the records of those who studied them. The Caspian's luminescent anomalies persist as an enigma, resisting explanation and occupying a realm between natural phenomenon and something altogether more mysterious. Even after careful analysis, decades of monitoring and cross-border collaboration, the lights remain unclassified, defying categorization and eluding definitive description. Their recurrence, specificity of location, and peculiar movement continue to draw the attention of researchers, fishermen, and naval personnel alike, ensuring that the mystery remains active, pressing, and unsolved to this day. What glimmers rise and fade in the Caspian remain a puzzle, visible only long enough to hint at truths that evade capture. The 1991 USS Ohio sonar encounter in the Pacific. A series of unexpected blips flashed across the sonar screens, catching the attention of operators who had grown accustomed to the quiet hum of deep-sea navigation. The signals appeared suddenly, faint but distinct, registering at depths and distances that conventional tracking could not easily explain. Crew members leaned closer to their instruments, voices subdued, noting the precise timing and movement of each anomaly. For the men aboard the USS Ohio, trained to trust their instruments implicitly, the readings suggested something unusual, a presence in the vast Pacific waters that defied immediate understanding. Conversations buzzed in hushed tones as the blips repeated, more persistent than any natural phenomenon the crew had previously encountered. The readings initially seemed innocuous, yet they persisted, hinting at movement that could not be explained by thermal layers, schools of fish, or known marine life. Each sweep of the sonar returned consistent patterns, revealing a presence that paralleled the submarine's own movements in a way that challenged conventional logic. Officers debated possible explanations, consulting charts and historical data, yet the anomaly refused to fit any known category. Its precision, timing, and persistence implied an entity operating with awareness, an intelligence that the crew could neither see nor fully comprehend. Crew members exchanged wary glances as the object appeared to shadow the submarine, accelerating and pausing with a precision that defied normal oceanic behavior. Vibrations from the engines, the hum of electrical systems, and the occasional metallic creak of the hull seemed amplified by the tension in the control room. Each subtle echo from the object resonated through the instruments, yet left no visible wake or trace on the water's surface. The realization that they were being observed by something operating in deep, uncharted waters created a quiet unease, a feeling of being simultaneously hunted and studied. Every instrument on board confirmed that the anomaly was real. The signals were too consistent and deliberate to be dismissed as noise or interference. Sonar echoes matched pressure readings and navigation data, leaving no room for doubt. The object's patterns were neither erratic nor random. They were methodical, with periods of acceleration and stillness that implied decision-making beyond natural ocean phenomena. Officers took meticulous notes, capturing each fluctuation, knowing that their records might become some of the few verifiable accounts of an event that would otherwise slip into legend. A subtle tension filled the control room, a quiet awareness that whatever was out there was monitoring them in return. Even those who had spent years aboard submarines felt a creeping apprehension, the kind born from realizing that the deepest reaches of the ocean could harbor intelligence beyond human comprehension. Conversations ceased as officers observed the screens in silence, aware that any sound or movement could be detected and interpreted. The anomaly had turned the submarine from observer to participant in a game whose rules were unknown. Over hours, the unknown presence maintained a steady distance, its motions deliberate yet inscrutable, as if studying the vessel's own navigation patterns. The object mirrored turns and ascents, adjusting its depth and speed in ways that suggested keen observation. For the crew, each adjustment of the submarine revealed the object's remarkable adaptability, a precision that no known technology or marine species could replicate. Despite prolonged observation, no predictable rhythm emerged, leaving the officers both awed and unnerved. While underway, the crew recorded a series of rapid, oscillating sonar echoes that appeared to pulse in irregular intervals, unlike any natural formation or known vessel signature. Technicians carefully monitored these fluctuations, noting that the object seemed to adjust its depth to compensate for ocean currents and thermocline layers, maintaining a consistent position relative to the submarine. Crew members observed subtle changes in internal acoustic pressure, suggesting that the object's proximity had physical effects on the submarine's environment. These readings reinforced the notion that it was not merely a passive presence but an intelligent, responsive entity capable of interacting with its surroundings in ways no conventional submarine could replicate. Acoustic distortions caused by currents, thermoclines, and pressure gradients complicated observation, but the object's behaviour remained distinct and deliberate on every readout. Subtle shifts in water density altered sound propagation, sometimes making the blips appear further or closer than they were. Yet the anomaly's signature cut through these distortions with clarity, each pulse confirming its presence and deliberate action. Analysts later noted that the object's manoeuvres were optimized to exploit these oceanic conditions, further complicating efforts to classify it. Attempts to vary the submarine's course elicited responses that only deepened the enigma, movements too rapid and precise to match any known technology or natural phenomenon. The USS Ohio executed subtle turns and speed changes, probing the limits of the object's reactions. Yet with every adjustment, the anomaly responded in ways that suggested awareness, almost as if it anticipated each maneuver. Crew members documented each interaction meticulously, aware that the evidence might be the closest insight into a deep ocean intelligence the world had ever recorded. After the encounter, analysts reviewed the sonar logs, noting patterns of acceleration, sudden direction changes, and depths that seemed impossible for conventional submarines. No known marine species, torpedo, or experimental underwater vehicle could account for the readings. Each signature appeared deliberate, precise, and optimized for observation rather than attack or evasion. Even seasoned naval personnel familiar with experimental subs and deep-sea currents could not explain the data, confirming that they had encountered something beyond ordinary classification. Even as the anomaly disappeared from the instruments, its presence lingered in the minds of the crew, a reminder of the ocean's hidden and deliberate mysteries. The quiet hum of the submarine returned to normal, but the psychological imprint of the encounter persisted. Officers reflected on the object's intelligence, adaptability, and capacity for observation, wondering if other vessels had been shadowed similarly in the Pacific depths. The ocean, vast and uncharted, had revealed only a fleeting glimpse of something remarkable. The encounter revealed a form of intelligence operating silently in the depths, unclassifiable and unseen, yet undeniably aware of those who tracked it. The submarine, a pinnacle of human engineering, had confronted a presence that eluded classification and detection, moving with a precision and understanding that exceeded known physics and marine capability. Sonar logs, crew recollections, and instrumentation all pointed to the same conclusion. A deliberate entity had observed the USS Ohio, remaining beyond capture, beyond interference, and beyond comprehension. In the depths of the Pacific, a presence moves with intent and certainty, leaving behind only questions that human instruments cannot answer. The Malmstrom to ocean transition hypothesis. In the remote expanse of Montana, Malmstrom Air Force Base had long been a centre of strategic surveillance, its runways and radar towers constantly monitoring the skies during an era of heightened tension. Personnel stationed there occasionally reported fleeting lights and objects that moved with a speed and precision that conventional aircraft could not replicate, vanishing before they could be properly tracked. These sightings, recorded over the years in official logs and internal reports, often seemed isolated at first, yet subtle similarities emerged between incidents separated by months or even years. Slowly, patterns began to take shape, hinting at movement that stretched far beyond the terrestrial horizon. Over time, these fleeting anomalies appeared to follow certain trajectories that could not be explained by normal flight paths or atmospheric conditions. Some lights were observed accelerating abruptly, performing maneuvers that defied aeronautical principles, then vanishing without warning from radar or visual observation. Witnesses described sudden appearances in one sector of the sky, only to disappear over nearby forests or lakes, leaving no trace of conventional propulsion or exhaust. For those who catalogued the events, the meticulous records revealed the faint outlines of a phenomenon that was systematic, almost methodical in its pattern. Some incidents coincided with reports from distant coastal waters, where sonar anomalies and unexplained surface disturbances were recorded around the same time frame. Naval patrols occasionally noted objects appearing near shipping lanes or submerged in shallow coastal zones without an identifiable origin. The timings were too precise to be ignored. Sightings inland often preceded these maritime anomalies by hours or days, suggesting a sequence that bridged land and sea. The repetition of these correlations, recorded across multiple locations, hinted at a process that had eluded conventional explanation, a movement that was deliberate yet invisible. Cross-referencing flight logs, radar returns, and sonar recordings began to reveal threads connecting the inland activity to distant waters. Movement patterns suggested the possibility of objects capable of operating in multiple environments, transitioning from airspace to aquatic depths with an ease that challenged human engineering. Observers noted that these shifts were not abrupt in the technical sense, but appeared calculated, almost as if the objects were following predetermined pathways from the interior of the continent toward the oceans. The implications of such transitions stirred both curiosity and caution among those who documented them. In certain cases, craft seemed to vanish from radar at Malmstrom only to reappear near coastal waters hours later, travelling distances too great to account for conventional aircraft or submarines. These transitions defied ordinary logic, with objects maintaining speed and precision despite changing medium from atmosphere to water. Witnesses aboard both land-based installations and naval vessels remarked on the object's sudden appearances, which coincided with no known flight or navigation schedules. Even the most seasoned personnel were left questioning how such coordinated movement could occur, if not through means unknown to conventional science. Topographical maps, river networks, and magnetic anomalies were examined to determine whether natural features could guide such movement. Analysts observed that major rivers and lakes might provide navigational corridors, while unusual magnetic patterns could, in theory, influence instruments or even propulsion in ways not yet understood. These geographic alignments offered a framework for understanding the seemingly impossible journeys from inland airspace to the depths of oceans, though no definitive mechanism was ever established. The mere possibility of such corridors added a layer of intrigue to the already puzzling events. Patterns repeated across decades, linking inland sightings to offshore sonar detections in ways that could not easily be dismissed as coincidence. Certain routes, followed with remarkable regularity, suggested that these were not random excursions but deliberate transitions. The frequency of these occurrences, coupled with the precision of timing, implied a level of intelligence or control behind the movements. Observers noted that the objects appeared to know when to shift between domains, maintaining a continuity of motion that resisted simple classification. Archival radar footage and declassified satellite data occasionally revealed anomalies that corresponded with both inland and offshore reports, suggesting a continuity of movement previously unnoticed. These records showed blips appearing over Montana, disappearing from radar, then appearing near oceanic coastal zones hours later, matching timelines of USO activity captured by naval sonar. Technical specialists noted subtle correlations in trajectory, speed, and maneuvering patterns, reinforcing the idea that these objects operated in both atmospheric and aquatic environments. While gaps remained in the datasets, the repeated alignment of independent observational systems hinted at an intelligence capable of navigating across domains with remarkable consistency. Military reports, historical documentation, and eyewitness accounts all contributed to the hypothesis that some craft could traverse both airspace and water with exceptional ease. Pilots, radar operators, and submarine crews each provided fragments of the puzzle, from sudden disappearances over Montana to subtle sonar echoes off distant coastlines. These separate pieces when aligned chronologically and geographically, painted a picture of something operating at the intersection of domains invisible to standard observation, yet leaving measurable traces in the instruments designed to detect ordinary aircraft and marine traffic. The precise mechanisms behind these transitions remain unknown, leaving lingering questions about the capabilities, intent, and origin of these objects. No recorded aircraft or submarine technology at the time could account for the observed maneuvers, speeds, and sudden shifts between environments. What emerges instead is a tantalizing sense of pattern and purpose, a repeated choreography linking terrestrial and maritime phenomena, each observation reinforcing the notion that there is more occurring than can be explained by current understanding. The emerging hypothesis suggests a form of movement that is deliberate, hidden, and intelligent, bridging gaps between land-based UFO sightings and offshore USO activity. Such transitions, if they exist, would require mastery over both aerial and aquatic environments, a control of physics, and navigation beyond contemporary human achievement. Records from Malmström, when paired with naval sonar anomalies, form a tapestry of unexplained movement, hinting at hidden corridors connecting the sky and the sea. This perspective challenges conventional understanding, revealing a layer of the unknown that operates quietly beneath the surface of both observation and expectation. Across years of documentation, the evidence implies that these pathways are neither random nor purely terrestrial. They are deliberate channels through which objects traverse domains unseen, leaving traces that are subtle yet persistent. These corridors, if navigated intentionally, suggest that what vanishes from view over land may simply be beginning a journey beneath the waves, continuing along routes we cannot fully observe or anticipate. Each new correlation strengthens the impression of intelligent design, a pattern connecting phenomena that otherwise appear disconnected across time and distance. If such hidden pathways exist, they hint at a world where the boundary between sky and sea is not a limit but a doorway yet to be understood. The 2004 Nimitz Carrier Group's subsurface contacts. During routine training exercises off the Southern California coast in late November 2004, the Nimitz Carrier Group encountered anomalies that initially seemed like minor technical glitches. Radar operators noticed fleeting blips that darted across screens at impossible speeds, disappearing as quickly as they appeared. The calm Pacific waters reflected the grey sky, yet the instruments suggested motion that contradicted every expectation. For sailors and technicians alike, the initial readings were puzzling, prompting repeated recalibrations of radar and sonar systems, yet each adjustment seemed to confirm that something tangible, yet unexplained, was moving across and beneath the ocean. Sonar operators soon observed pulses that moved against prevailing currents, accelerating in ways that no conventional vessel could match. Depth readings fluctuated unpredictably, with objects shifting from mid-water layers to near the surface in seconds. Crew members compared the patterns to known submarine and marine traffic, but found no match. The irregular movements created a tension that spread through the carrier's bridge, as seasoned personnel struggled to reconcile the data with physics and known technology. Conversations in hushed tones conveyed disbelief, a subtle acknowledgement that the anomaly defied standard naval experience. On multiple occasions, luminous shapes were observed surfacing briefly before plunging back into the depths, leaving only transient radar echoes behind. Pilots reporting from above described seeing faint glows skimming the water, vanishing almost as soon as they became visible. These fleeting appearances were so sudden and precise that even the most experienced aviators questioned whether what they saw could truly exist within the known rules of motion. The contrast between surface calm and sudden activity heightened unease as the crew realized they were witnessing phenomena operating entirely outside conventional understanding. Instruments displayed further inconsistencies. Infrared readings detected the objects in one position, while sonar suggested they were elsewhere, a discrepancy that defied standard calibration. Technicians attempted to reconcile the conflicting data, adjusting sensitivity and filters, yet the irregularities persisted. For a moment, the anomalies seemed almost to challenge the very systems designed to track them. The crew could see in real time the gulf between human technological perception and what the ocean was concealing, an unsettling reminder that observation alone could not fully capture the phenomenon. Fighter pilots reported luminous shapes descending from the sky toward the water at high velocity, disappearing before any interception could occur. One aviator described a vertical drop into the ocean that seemed to defy gravity and drag, followed by an almost instantaneous acceleration along the surface. These reports, recorded in official flight logs, aligned with sonar anomalies detected minutes earlier by the carrier. The overlap of airborne and submerged activity added an eerie coherence to otherwise sporadic events, suggesting that the objects were capable of seamless transitions between air and water. Oceanographic conditions during the encounters were calm, with minimal wave action and uniform thermoclines. Yet the object's movement seemed entirely unaffected by environmental constraints, slicing through surface tension and adjusting depth without hesitation. Scientists later analysing oceanographic data noted that the precision of movement across variable layers was anomalous, implying control over physical forces that naval engineers had never observed. The juxtaposition of natural ocean behaviour and the object's defiance of it created a tangible tension, as if the USOs were operating according to a set of rules entirely separate from the human understanding of water and motion. Through continuous sonar monitoring, unusual harmonic vibrations were captured in the water, faint oscillations that seemed to emanate from the objects themselves rather than reflecting off them. These signals fluctuated in frequency and amplitude in ways that suggested active propulsion or a form of energy emission, unlike anything previously catalogued in naval operations. Submarine technicians and naval scientists later examined the patterns, noting that the anomalies occasionally interfered with the carrier's acoustic sensors, creating brief blind spots. Such interference hinted at an advanced control over the surrounding medium, further reinforcing the impression that these were not passive phenomena but intelligent entities capable of manipulating their environment with precision. Communications among bridge and deck crews revealed a rising sense of urgency, as defensive protocols were considered to track what seemed impossible to follow. Orders were relayed carefully, ensuring standard procedures were upheld even as uncertainty grew. Crew members described a mix of professional focus and quiet anxiety, aware that they were witnessing events outside the realm of ordinary naval operations. The careful recording of positions, distances, and timings became a meticulous exercise in documenting an encounter that technology could barely interpret, a testament to both the unpredictability of the objects and the discipline of the personnel observing them. Repeated patterns in sonar and radar data hinted at controlled, deliberate motion, as though the objects were aware of the vessels attempting to track them. Movement was not haphazard. Each shift, acceleration, or pause appeared calculated. Analysts reviewing the recordings later noted correlations between speed changes and proximity to carrier movements, suggesting a responsive intelligence. These findings blurred the line between mechanical anomalies and something more conscious, raising questions about capability and intent that remained unresolved even after an extensive review of all available data. Historical references to USO activity suggested similar behaviours worldwide, though the technological clarity of the 2004 encounters added new layers to the mystery. Unlike decades-old sightings limited to visual observation or sonar echoes, this event combined modern radar, infrared, and multiple witness reports into a cohesive record. The precision of measurement, paired with first-hand accounts from trained personnel, created a dataset unlike any previous, highlighting a phenomenon both consistent and elusive. The Nimitz events offered an unprecedented glimpse of objects capable of operating in both air and sea with extraordinary facility. Even with the most advanced naval systems available, the objects defied classification, leaving gaps in understanding that no training, protocol, or technical manual could fill. Every attempt to model their movement or predict behaviour fell short, as if the USOs were continuously operating one step ahead of observation. Crew recollections and subsequent reviews reinforced a growing awareness. There were forces at work in the ocean that human instruments could track imperfectly, that human reasoning could only partially interpret. The vast Pacific became, for a brief period, a theatre of mystery where the known rules seemed suspended. The final readings recorded brief, fading signals that offered no closure, leaving only the faintest echoes of an encounter that challenged conventional understanding. The objects vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the carrier group to resume operations under the ordinary rhythms of naval exercises. Yet the data, recordings, and reports persisted, a silent reminder that something intelligent and elusive had traversed the waters in ways the crew could not fully comprehend. Even the ocean, vast and familiar, had revealed a dimension that remained hidden and profoundly unknowable. Though the Nimitz returned to routine operations, the waters it left behind seemed to hold secrets that remained entirely beyond human reach. The South China Sea's persistent deep-water targets. For years, maritime patrols noticed persistent anomalies appearing in deep channels and trenches, their movements defying conventional explanations and drawing attention from multiple nations' navies. The South China Sea, already a hub of territorial and shipping tensions, became a stage for these recurring mysteries, with objects detected at depths and speeds that no known vessel could achieve. Detailed sonar logs, visual reports from submarines, and intermittent radar contacts painted a picture of something deliberate, intelligent, and enduring. Even during calm weather and clear visibility, the targets moved with precision that suggested they were tracking the patrols as much as they were being tracked. Acoustic sensors frequently registered echoes that appeared without identifiable sources, registering as deep water contacts far from known shipping lanes. Analysts noted that the signals often appeared in clusters along deep-sea trenches, sometimes moving in coordinated patterns across multiple locations. These movements did not match any known marine vessel or submarine design, suggesting the presence of objects capable of sudden acceleration, rapid vertical changes, and lateral shifts that defied conventional hydrodynamics. Crew members described the echoes as pulsing or vibrating, hinting at propulsion or energy emissions, unlike any marine animal or human-made technology. Even brief contact left operators with a sense of witnessing the inexplicable. The ocean itself presented extraordinary challenges to detection. Layers of varying temperature and salinity created complex thermoclines, which normally distorted sonar readings. Yet the anomalies persisted across these layers, moving without observable interference. Specialists later remarked that the precision of these movements suggested an ability to operate within and above natural environmental constraints. Currents, tides, and underwater topography seemed irrelevant to the object's navigation, further confounding operators. Even when multiple sonar platforms triangulated the positions, the objects appeared to anticipate or adjust to human tracking. The interplay between natural conditions and anomalous behaviour intensified both intrigue and unease. Visual observations, though rare, provided compelling corroboration. On several occasions, submarine periscopes or low-light cameras detected faint luminescent glows beneath the surface, briefly forming geometric patterns before dissolving into the darkness. Crew members reported seeing these glimmers move independently, sometimes splitting into multiple points before recombining into a single form. Observers noted a strange coherence in the light's motion, suggesting control or awareness rather than natural bioluminescence. Even fleeting, these exposures left lasting impressions, reinforcing the sense that the phenomena were deliberate and highly capable. Log entries recorded these sightings meticulously, yet none could explain the underlying mechanism. Tracking the targets across multiple fleets proved a constant challenge. Data sharing efforts were complicated by differences in equipment, communication protocols, and observation methods. Some anomalies corresponded to acoustic or radar contacts in one region and visual sightings in another hundreds of miles away, implying either extraordinary speed or repeated strategic positioning. Attempts to coordinate interception or monitoring were often frustrated by environmental factors or the sudden disappearance of signals. Analysts noted that the object's behaviour suggested both autonomy and intelligence, raising questions about purpose and intent. The combination of recurring patterns and unpredictability made planning or prediction nearly impossible. Behavioural analysis revealed remarkable consistencies despite elusive appearances. Objects often returned to the same locations at intervals, suggesting preferred resting zones or navigational corridors. When approached by patrol vessels, they displayed evasive manoeuvres, accelerating sharply or diving abruptly into deep trenches. Certain encounters suggested awareness of monitoring efforts, as if the objects could sense and respond to detection attempts. These observations sparked debate among naval personnel, who questioned whether the USOs were sentient, controlled, or employing unknown mechanisms. Recurrent patterns hinted at a systematic presence in the sea, challenging conventional assumptions about marine activity and prompting further detailed study. Historical records of USO activity worldwide offered intriguing though limited comparisons. Similar evasive behaviours and depth ranges had been documented in the North Atlantic, Pacific and other remote waters, yet the South China Sea cases stood out for their persistence and frequency. Unlike singular sightings, these anomalies appeared over months and years, documented by multiple vessels, aircraft and sensor platforms. Analysts studying the data suggested that the phenomenon could represent a global pattern of underwater intelligence, with local manifestations influenced by geography and oceanographic conditions. The correlation raised new questions about origin, purpose, and possible connections between incidents worldwide. Technological limitations became increasingly apparent. Sonar provided partial or inconsistent readings, radar often failed to detect submerged targets, and infrared occasionally picked up brief heat signatures. Each system individually revealed fragments, yet none offered a complete understanding. Some anomalies interfered with equipment, producing transient blind spots or spurious echoes that were difficult to reconcile. These limitations reinforced the sense that the objects operated in ways human technology could not fully track. For personnel relying on instrumentation, each encounter emphasized both the object's elusiveness and the inherent gaps in human perception and measurement. The human element remained central to understanding the phenomenon. Crews described a tense mixture of fascination and unease as they monitored the USOs. Officers and operators noted rapid fluctuations on screens, inconsistent sonar echoes, and fleeting luminescent glimpses that challenged interpretation. Conversations in control rooms often combined procedural rigour with candid speculation, as experienced personnel tried to reconcile the unexplainable with known science. Reports recorded both observed behaviour and subjective impressions, acknowledging the limits of observation while preserving meticulous accounts. The resulting documentation remains one of the most detailed records of persistent underwater anomalies in international waters. The persistence of the anomalies over extended periods suggested these were not isolated events. Patterns recurred in the same trenches and corridors, yet individual movements remained unpredictable. Objects displayed timing, speed and coordination that implied planning, adaptability and spatial awareness beyond conventional explanation. Analysts speculated that they might utilize environmental features strategically, integrating depth, current, and temperature variations into navigational tactics. The endurance of these anomalies, combined with sporadic but deliberate behavior, left observers aware that the South China Sea had become a living laboratory of the unexplained, where human instruments recorded only fragments of a larger, hidden phenomenon. Even with careful calibration and rigorous tracking procedures, the objects remained elusive. Operators could predict general regions of appearance, but precise movement, depth, and response to vessels remained unpredictable. Combined international reports emphasized a persistent presence that defied classification. Attempts to simulate or model the movement were inconclusive, as anomalies consistently diverged from calculated expectations. In essence, the objects appeared to inhabit a parallel reality within the ocean, one that intersected human observation only fleetingly and without full comprehension. Each encounter reinforced the sense that these were not passive anomalies, but entities operating according to rules humans could not yet discern. The final assessments of participating naval forces documented brief, fading readings that did not explain, leaving behind only uncertainty and speculation. Each anomaly left evidence, blips on radar, sonar traces, or fleeting luminescent sightings that challenged conventional definitions of marine activity. Despite coordination and repeated monitoring efforts, the object's true nature remained unresolved, a persistent enigma in waters heavily traversed, yet fundamentally unknowable. In the depths of disputed waters, the persistent targets continued to move, silent and unseen, as if guarding secrets the world was never meant to uncover. The 1957 Argentine naval encounter off Tierra del Fuego. The Argentine destroyer sailed through the storm-swept channels off Tierra del Fuego, each towering wave rocking the ship violently as the crew scanned the waters for any unusual movement. During routine patrols, sonar operators detected faint, irregular echoes that did not match the signature of any known submarine or marine vessel. Initially dismissed as anomalies caused by weather or topography, the readings persisted and grew more coherent. Officers exchanged cautious glances, realizing the signals were not random. The icy wind whipped across the deck, carrying with it the sense that something extraordinary lurked in the dark, turbulent waters surrounding the southernmost tip of the continent. Storm clouds loomed low on the horizon, merging with the mist rising from the turbulent sea. Visibility was limited to mere meters, and the relentless rain made every observation a challenge. Deck crews struggled to maintain equipment and maintain lookout positions, while radar and sonar operators attempted to discern patterns in the persistent echoes. Even the faint glow of navigational lights could not penetrate the gloom. In this inhospitable environment, the anomaly, whatever it might be, seemed to operate effortlessly, moving through the chaos of waves and ice with an unearthly precision that left the human observers both frustrated and unnerved. A sudden disturbance on the water's surface caught the attention of the lookouts, a brief shimmer that suggested a massive object moving just beneath the waves. Searchlights cut through the fog, illuminating nothing but roiling water, yet the ripples persisted in irregular shapes, defying ordinary ocean currents. The sonar readings continued to pulse in synchronization with these surface disturbances, hinting at a solid presence that neither reflected light nor adhered to standard aquatic behavior. Crew members whispered among themselves, the combination of visual and acoustic anomalies suggesting that something intelligent, or at least highly unusual, was maneuvering deliberately within the tempestuous waters. The bridge grew tense as the anomaly maintained its presence, undeterred by the ship's approach. Officers attempted to plot the object's course, but the readings were erratic and elusive. Every maneuver made by the destroyer was met with a corresponding change in the target's position, as though it anticipated the patrol's efforts. Crew members trained in sonar operations and naval tactics found themselves confronting behavior that did not conform to any known protocol. The sense of control that normally accompanied such patrols was replaced by uncertainty, a recognition that the waters of Tierra del Fuego held secrets far beyond conventional maritime knowledge. As the destroyer adjusted its course to track the object more closely, the anomaly responded with swift, unpredictable movements, diving suddenly or shifting laterally with astonishing speed. Conventional propulsion could not explain such acceleration or sudden vertical changes. Crew members speculated whether they were witnessing a new type of submarine or an entirely unknown entity capable of defying known physics. The object's evasive maneuvers created waves that splashed across the deck, further emphasizing its proximity and the tangible reality of its presence. The officers struggled to maintain composure while monitoring instruments that refused to provide definitive answers. The ship's sonar equipment, state-of-the-art for 1957, struggled to produce a coherent picture. Blips flickered across the screen, vanishing and reappearing with no apparent pattern. Radar failed to detect the object at times, while communications with nearby vessels provided only fragmented confirmation. Attempts to triangulate its position proved unreliable, leaving the crew with partial and contradictory data. Even the most experienced sonar operators acknowledged the limitations of their instruments when confronted with something that seemed to exist outside the known capabilities of naval technology. The anomaly, whatever it was, remained a persistent and maddening presence. Over several hours, the object demonstrated repeated behavior, returning to similar zones while never remaining in one place long enough to be fully tracked. It appeared to navigate underwater ridges and channels with apparent ease, as if intimately aware of the terrain. Observers noted the precision of its movements, adjusting depth and speed in ways that suggested an advanced understanding of the environment. The patterns defied simple explanation, hinting at intelligence or a form of propulsion entirely unknown to the Argentine Navy. Each appearance and disappearance created mounting tension aboard the ship, blending frustration with an awe at the precision and persistence of the phenomenon. Environmental conditions compounded the mystery. Currents shifted unpredictably, floating ice presented obstacles, and the violent southern winds made surface observation treacherous. Yet the object moved unimpeded, maneuvering around icebergs, maintaining course, and reacting to the destroyer's position with uncanny responsiveness. The storm, rather than concealing it, seemed to accentuate its capabilities, emphasizing the disparity between human limitations and the object's apparent mastery of the sea. Even the crew's most seasoned navigators admitted that the anomaly's behavior suggested a level of operational control impossible to replicate with known technology of the era. Efforts to engage the object intensified. Searchlights swept across the waves, illuminating nothing but dark water and fleeting reflections. Sonar operators attempted to track its depth and course in real time, while officers ordered evasive and intercept maneuvers to test its reaction. Each approach elicited changes in the anomaly's movement, often leaving the destroyer several miles behind as the object executed abrupt dives or accelerated beyond expected limits. Observers were left with a growing awareness that the object was not only capable of movement beyond conventional vessels, but appeared to operate deliberately to remain beyond precise detection. The psychological impact on the crew was profound. Silence on the bridge was punctuated by hushed speculation, tension thickening as hours passed with no resolution. Experienced naval officers and sonar technicians, trained to operate under extreme pressure, found themselves questioning the reality of what they were witnessing. Logbooks recorded anomalies, evasion patterns, and fleeting glimpses of light or surface disturbance, yet none could definitively identify the object. Each crew member grappled with the impossible, a powerful, unseen presence navigating the ocean with apparent awareness of human pursuit, leaving questions that defied rational explanation. By dawn, the anomaly had vanished entirely, leaving behind only sonar traces and a pervasive sense of unease. No visual confirmation remained, no radar blips persisted, and the waters seemed to return to normal as if the encounter had never occurred. The crew could only speculate about the object's nature, origin, and intentions. Its disappearance did not bring relief, only a lingering tension born of witnessing something beyond comprehension. Reports filed by the destroyer would later enter classified naval archives, yet no definitive conclusions were drawn, leaving one of the Southern Ocean's most enigmatic encounters unresolved. The waters off Tierra del Fuego held the secret, vanishing into the cold horizon, a presence no crew could fully measure or understand. The 1971 Mediterranean Deepwater USO off Malta. A sonar anomaly appeared that no technician could immediately classify, its sheer size and depth challenging every expectation of the Mediterranean seabed near Malta. Initial readings suggested something far larger than typical marine life, yet its movements were inconsistent with known submersibles or natural formations. Ships stationed nearby reported unusual acoustic disturbances, and the object seemed to react subtly to passing vessels, though no visual confirmation was possible. Even standard depth mapping scans offered little clarity, revealing only vague shadows and irregular contours. Over the course of several nights, the anomaly remained elusive, teasing observers with fragments of evidence and hinting at a presence that refused categorization. The echoes returned were irregular, shifting abruptly in a way that suggested movement yet offered no clear trajectory. Sonar pulses would spike and fade without pattern, leaving technical teams struggling to interpret the data. Acoustic signatures appeared both solid and diffuse, as if the object could alter its density or orientation beneath the water. Marine biologists consulted during the operation found no species capable of producing such readings, while naval engineers dismissed any known vessel as a candidate. Even the slightest current seemed to affect its apparent location, further complicating estimates. In these initial days, the anomaly became the center of a growing web of questions that no single discipline could resolve. Cold, dense layers of the Mediterranean deep seemed to bend and swirl around the invisible presence, creating turbulence that interfered with standard navigation and depth instruments. The thermocline appeared unusually warped in this region, leading some specialists to speculate that the object emitted heat or mass sufficient to alter the surrounding water. As vessels made repeated passes, subtle changes in water density hinted at something massive but inert or perhaps a shape-shifting form. These hydrodynamic peculiarities confused crews accustomed to stable, predictable conditions, forcing a reconsideration of what a stationary underwater object might mean. With every layer of the sea examined, the mystery only deepened. Officers on multiple patrol vessels coordinated their readings, yet every method to estimate their depth or size yielded contradictory results. Triangulation techniques often produced measurements that conflicted by hundreds of meters, suggesting that conventional sonar assumptions might not apply. Some specialists hypothesized a hollow structure or reflective surfaces that distorted readings, while others considered the possibility of an organic entity with unusual mass properties. The inability to obtain consensus among multiple vessels fostered a cautious tension among the crews, all aware that the object defied established maritime norms. Each new calculation seemed to confirm one truth above all: they were observing something unprecedented. Sonar blips appeared in bursts, vanishing moments later, leaving no clear evidence of their trajectory or purpose. The sporadic signals were reminiscent of fleeting interactions with a conscious presence, yet no known underwater craft could accelerate and disappear in such a manner. Subtle anomalies in echo strength suggested that the object could alter its orientation to evade detection, a behaviour that puzzled engineers and naval tacticians alike. Attempts to categorize it based on size, depth, or acoustic profile repeatedly failed, leading to mounting speculation about its origin. The Mediterranean, usually predictable in its sonar response, seemed to bend around this anomaly, revealing gaps in understanding that would endure for decades. Across several days, repeated passes over the same coordinates confirmed that the anomaly lingered in the deep, refusing to reveal its form. Vessels operating hours apart recorded the same blips, with no discernible change in speed or direction, indicating a persistence that defied natural explanations. Depth profiles consistently showed a singular mass, yet its exact shape remained impossible to define. Even detailed environmental scans revealed nothing unusual about the seafloor or water composition that could account for the readings. It was as if a silent sentinel had claimed this section of the Mediterranean, a presence both enormous and enigmatic, unaffected by the routine motions of the surface world. Its size alone suggested a construct far beyond ordinary marine life, yet its behaviour seemed unlike any man-made vessel catalogued in NATO records. Comparisons to submarines and deep-sea mining equipment revealed vast discrepancies, with the anomaly far exceeding known dimensions and possessing the ability to seemingly vanish from sonar. Some technical reports speculated that it could be composed of materials unknown or untested in naval archives. Its inexplicable qualities drew the attention of multiple research departments, yet each investigation led only to further questions. The anomaly's sheer magnitude, combined with its evasive behaviour, hinted at something intentionally concealed, or perhaps beyond comprehension. Naval specialists meticulously tracked the unusual readings, noting every subtle variation in sonar signals and minor disturbances across the water's surface. Patterns emerged only to contradict themselves, revealing brief intervals of apparent activity followed by long periods of silence. Sensors detected acoustic distortions that suggested angular edges or reflective surfaces, yet optical instruments returned blank footage. Analysts catalogued hundreds of micro-events, each too fleeting to draw definitive conclusions, yet collectively they painted a picture of an entity capable of remaining largely undetected. The meticulous attention given to these readings reinforced the sense that the anomaly was not a casual phenomenon, but a persistent, deliberate presence in the depths. Onboard personnel reported subtle vibrations and a sensation of pressure shifting beneath the hull, experiences that intensified the atmosphere of unease. Instruments occasionally registered minute shifts in buoyancy and tilt, correlating with the proximity of the USO's sonar signature. Even seasoned officers, accustomed to the quirks of deep water operations, found themselves unnerved by these intangible effects. Conversations across vessels included whispered speculations about the object's composition and intent, though all remained speculative. The combination of physical sensations and sonar anomalies created an almost tactile sense of something immense lying hidden in the Mediterranean's depths, palpable yet invisible. Efforts to deploy cameras and submersibles yielded no visual confirmation, the depths proving too hostile for direct observation. Darkness and pressure combined to defeat even the most advanced technology of the time, leaving crews reliant on indirect measurements. Every remotely operated vehicle returned with corrupted or inconclusive data, reinforcing the object's elusiveness. Some researchers proposed that the USO might possess an adaptive cloaking mechanism or optical properties that rendered it invisible. Each failed attempt to see it only amplified the mystery, creating an atmosphere where imagination and instrumentation intersected, leaving the true form of the anomaly tantalizingly out of reach. Even months later, the official documentation remained inconclusive, leaving the object classified in reports as unidentified and a source of ongoing intrigue. References persisted in naval archives, but no definitive explanation was ever recorded, and the anomaly faded from active investigation as resources shifted elsewhere. retrospective analyses considered natural phenomena, experimental submarines, and even extraterrestrial hypotheses, yet none could account for all observed behaviours. The 1971 encounter remained a touchstone for discussions of deep-water USOs, cited for its clarity of detection and opacity of evidence. It stood as a reminder that even in well-mapped waters, the Mediterranean held secrets that resisted illumination. In the silent abyss off Malta, the USO persisted unseen, a lingering presence that challenged all attempts at understanding.